Let's start off with Brooklyn, New York.
All right, where we were both born.
We were both born.
I was born in Wyckoff Heights Hospital.
Okay, I was born in St. Mary's. I don't even know if it exists anymore.
Wyckoff Heights still exists.
Really?
Yeah, still there. My father-in-law from my second marriage had the gift shop in there. Dominic had the gift. The guy that owned Flower had the gift shop in Wyckoff Heights.
Well, you jumped too far ahead of me. You went from that to get married already.
Right.
Well, I'm talking about growing up in Brooklyn. So what age were you when you left?
When I left Brooklyn?
Yeah.
I was, when I moved into Ozone, what happened was we were living on Belmont Avenue. I was 5 years old, 5, and my aunt, Frankie Conti's mother, my Aunt Gibby, her nickname was Lenore, her husband inherited a house on 87th Street between 95th Avenue and 97th Avenue in Ozone Park. She inherited a house, he did, and we all moved into the house. I moved upstairs, we moved upstairs, and she lived downstairs with Frankie, Conti, and Andrea, Frankie, the mechanic's wife, and I lived upstairs and she lived downstairs. That's when I moved. So I moved to Ozone Park in 1959.
So you really didn't know the Brooklyn?
No.
As far as like gangs and stuff like that in Brooklyn, because in Queens they didn't have them.
Yeah, they had gangs, but I never was in a gang.
I never remember anybody from Queens. What kind of gang did they have in Queens?
They had gangs. I forgot the name of them. They had a gang in 88th Street Park. They had a gang. My friend Anthony's brother was in it. There was gangs in every neighborhood. Come on. There was a gang by White Castle where Blaze and all of them, their gang used to fight with them all the time. White Castle on Rockaway Boulevard. There was a gang there.
We never left that little cubby hole there.
But I know the first time I saw you.
But I was older. I was about 14, 15 years old.
I was 15.
Oh, okay. So I
ready
was
to
14.
turn 16 and you were
14.
You don't remember that? You remember?
No, I don't remember.
Lady Loretta's was having a feast.
The feast.
They were having a feast. I think it was the last year they had the feast because of you guys.
Oh, yeah.
And it was very racial back then,
Yes.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
And I was there with Ronnie One Arm because I knew Ronnie One Arm because he lived in Anthony. Anthony, the Carrazas, lives on top of his father's store. They all lived in the same building. So all the guys you looked up to when you were a kid, I knew them from I was born because they were all with my father.
Right.
So what happened was...
You're trying to say you were privileged?
I was privileged, yeah. I was lucky me. Yeah. So I was there with him because I knew him through Anthony, and I was there with him, and there was a fight between you guys, the white guys, and the black guys. And I remember you running through the street of the festival, and Ronnie told me that. I said, "Who's that guy?" And he said, "Robert, you were fighting with a black guy at Lady Loretta's feast."
Yeah, we had a lot of fights there.
That's the last year they had the feast there.
Well, of course, you had Eastern Parkway that separated. The whites were on this side, the blacks were on that side, so we always used to crash.
And remember, my father had the club on top of the beer distributor. And that was my first illegal job. Anthony Carrazza had the poker game up there.
Yeah.
And I worked. And
so did I.
Yeah, but they made me Anthony's partner, and we never
did
no money. Yeah.
Anthony
used to play.
Yeah.
He used to play and lose all the money, lose the cup money. Yeah. So we never made. And my father had the pigeon coop on top. They used to eat the pigeons. They used to eat the pigeons, and you were running around the neighborhood, and then you had a beef with Red Chetty. That's when I remember that. Nikki told me about that.
Yeah, I was close with Red, and then.
But you had a beef with him.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the first time I met you, actually, was with Little Joe, by the pizzeria. That was wrote in the book that I was shaking down the pizza guy. I don't remember.
You didn't pay. It's just like shaking the guy down.
Tony, that was Tony.
Yes, Tony's
the pizza.
Yeah.
Then I corrupted you because then the next day we went and I got you out of work to go to the beach and you never went back to the job.
Legitimate kid I could have been. So you're the ruination.
Yeah, but you had a cane.
Because I got hurt on the job.
And then we had the fight in that barn. You broke the guy's windows with your cane. Remember that?
Yeah. I didn't like being abused.
Well, he fought with us. That was on Liberty Avenue.
You started that fight. It was over a picture of beer. I never forget it.
Right.
Over a picture of beer.
Yeah.
He spilled the picture of beer when he was handing it to you. And then you started doing something, and then I went wild.
Yeah. And then you broke the windows.
And your father, I think the guy went to your father.
Probably did everything.
Yeah.
And that was the beginning of our relationship.
And then the first time we went on the lam was your father, when the guy got stabbed in Nichols Inn.
You know, no, not Nicholson.
Yes.
The guy got stabbed by the club.
Not the
motorcycle guy.
No, that's
right. Yeah,
the first
right
time
on Fulton Street.
we went to Florida.
I was fooling out. What's her name? That girl.
We don't need any names. We don't want to get these girls in trouble right now.
She's an old lady now.
Yeah.
She's a grandmother. Yeah, Nichols Inn on Fulton Street.
Exactly.
That's right. And then we were hanging out by the 93 Club at night, and that was after now we're writing numbers and all that. They were going to the Reunite.
Matter of fact, now that you mention it,
What?
we were partners with the number business.
With her?
Yeah. I still never got my money. So now that you might be making some, just remember that, okay?
Yeah, and then what happened? Then we were all in 93 Club that night. And I left, of course, I left with a girl, and I went to the Surfside 3 Motel, and you were supposed to meet me, and you never showed up.
Well, it was hard when you have money.
Yeah. And then I found out the guy got killed on Atlantic Avenue, and they were looking for you and little Joe. And then I told my father, and then we rounded you up, and you just went on the lamp.
Yeah.
Where'd you go first?
I think Joey Tamburo, up in Flushing.
That's that first time.
Wow. Yeah, Mikey T's brother.
Weren't you in the Bronx too?
That was later on.
I remember
that was later on.
I got drunk and I crashed my.
Yeah,
that's the day I stole my mother's car.
We were in Mikey T's brother's apartment. Then I think he couldn't handle us anymore. It was his. He was married, but that's where he used to meet his girlfriend. So that's where he used to bring her. So we were there first, and then we went to upstate. To Leeds.
You went to upstate, then to the
Leeds or Needs.
That was Happy Mayone's girlfriend. There was bodies buried up there.
Exactly.
Hershey.
Well, they didn't ask us to dig up anything.
Remember Hershey?
They didn't ask us to live. They didn't ask us to dig up anything.
Yeah.
So.
And then we just go.
And then that's the bad part, because that's when you started coming up and corrupting us.
Cool.
Me and Little Joe were pretty good kids at that time.
Yeah, because up to that,
I don't know about good kids, but
up to then we were living good. So, and then we started going to the Copa, getting dressed up right. The Copa, the Line House. We had fun.
Yeah, we did.
House,
I'm not saying we did.
Fudge Factory. Remember the Fudge Factory?
All of that there.
The Hippo.
That was before the case.
Oh yeah, way before.
That was in '72.
Yeah, that's because I'm going to tell you why. Because in '72, when my father went into the music business with Jay and the Americans, they took me to Puerto Rico with Sonny, Tony Lee's cousin. Remember Sonny?
Yeah.
He was the first guy that they made, one of the first guys that Paul Castellano straightened out.
I like Sonny.
Me too. We went to Puerto Rico with Jay, and Jay had a big suite. And every night he used to sing opera before he went on stage to warm up his voice. And all the girls were there, all the groupies, and they would drink wine and smoke weed. And I went up there one night and drinking wine, smoking weed with the groupies, and Jay singing opera. And then the third night I went up there, I walked in and they were at a table just like this. And I walked up to the table and there was white powder on the table. It was 1972, I was 19. And I walked up there and this guy, Kenny Vance, he was one of the original Americans. I said, what's that? He goes, it's Coke. Do you want to try it? And I go, yeah, definitely. And he handed me a straw. And that was the end of me. He did a couple of lines and that was it. But everybody was doing it. They were all doing it then in the city. Then I took a package back and I turned, you were Little Joe, huh?
Yeah, so this is the thought I'm having though. Here we are on the land, we're confined into a certain place where we can't go no place, because we have to hide out. And then you give us drugs that's gonna make us wanna go out.
Well, I know. Joseph didn't want to do it at first, remember? He said, I don't want that shit. He went, oh, you got to try this. It's good. You know, when I know I'm jumping ahead, but when I got clean and I started doing step work and I had to do my 8th and 9th step, I went to his grave and I made amends to a tombstone.
Well, you never made amends to me.
Oh, you're still alive. And then I started, and then I turned you all on, and then the rest is history.
Yeah.
But it was still recreational then, but everybody was doing it. in the hippo.
Because it was the disc.
Then I used to go home. My father used to go, "What were you out last night sticking that shit up your nose?" And I go, "Who told you?" The guy that was standing in the booth next to me. That's right, them son of a bees. He used to, I know who they are. I said, everybody's doing it.
But I got more involved in it later on when I started going to Mulberry Street. Wow. And the crap game.
Oh yeah.
Well, I've been hanging out with those guys. I thought as a tough guy,
on Hot Street. I worked in that crap game too.
You weren't supposed to do drugs.
No, but they were all blown.
That's what I'm saying. So that's how I seen it. So I figured if these guys were around, like Charlie West, 'cause I was hanging out in Charlie West's club.
Yeah, on Mott Street. On Mott Street.
And all of these guys were doing coke. Then I figured, okay, that's what tough guys do now. Because I never seen it with Jeannie or Nikki or them or your dad.
No.
Or, you know,
they were drinkers.
Exactly. So that's what turned
Those
me
are
about
they working in the crap. That's why today, you know, I was having a conversation today with the guys. What's the kids in the mob doing today? I go, I don't know what they're doing. When we were kids, we worked in dice games, poker games. We wrote numbers. We sold swears. We did everything.
Yeah.
What I don't know. Oh no, what goes on today? It's I don't even think they're criminals.
No, I think it's more internet though. I think they got a lot of scams with the internet now. Oh, because even before that, they're back.
Well, I'd be starving because I don't know shit about it.
But me too. But the same thing like back in the 90s when I was hanging out in Florida, there was a couple of guys that were doing that phone scams and stuff like that there.
Yeah.
So and they were making pretty big money.
You know what I think about too? I think about like when we were kids, how we were raised and how the violence came into play and how I lost my conscience, you know, because after we hooked up, me and you and little Joe, we had and Herman, go to Herman, with this we were biracial. We had a black guy with us. We used to take him to the Reunite with us. My father said, "Well, you see, I got a black guy with me," but he was sharp, Herman.
Yeah, Herman was.
And then the violence came in, and it didn't even faze us. That's when I think about it now. I go, the things we did didn't even faze.
Well, it didn't faze me because I grew up with it. In Brooklyn, that's what you did. You fought.
Yeah.
I fought almost every day of my life in Brooklyn, going back and forth to school.
Yeah.
And then we had the gangs on every other block. They had a gang, so that was just part of the life. Yeah. Matter of fact, they made a movie, I think, called The Warriors.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
And that was about Brooklyn.
Yeah, I know.
About Brooklyn.
Wasn't Stallone in that movie?
No, I don't think Stallone was. I forget who it was, though. But anyway, the point I'm saying is that a lot of that movie was true because if you took a train ride and you went into another place and you seen a bunch of guys coming on, you knew you were getting into a fight.
Yeah.
Because you were in their turf.
Yes.
So that was part of my life. Violence was part of my life even as a young kid. Yeah. Then when I started hanging out with you, it just grew even more.
Yeah. I was never in a gang, but so for me, I was born into it. You know, the year I was born was the same year my father got straightened out. In 53, and he used to tell me that was the best year of my life. I got married and I became a father, and I used to go, "Yeah, lucky me." Yeah. You couldn't open up a barber shop, so I was just raised. Then when I found out who he was, and what he was capable of, I was like, oh man, I want to be that.
Well, because also you were getting a lot of recognition, you're getting a lot of respect,
and I liked it. I like being treated special.
Exactly, and you still do. Come on.
Yeah, I'm still a little vain, and I'm working on it. That's why I want to get a tan, because I'm vain. I want to look good with a white shirt on. But yeah, and then when I started hearing stories about him, you know, about the murders and everything, that it was like, I ever tell you the story when he took me to remember the 5 o'clock in Canard, and remember the 5 o'clock lounge?
I think it was Rockaway Boulevard. Rockaway.
No, it was down on like Avenue, one of them. It was down in like Canarsie.
Yeah, Rockaway Boulevard went all the way down to about Avenue D, Avenue J.
5 o'clock lounge.
Yeah.
So he takes me in there one night, on a Friday night, and the place is packed. This is right before you started hanging out with me. The place was packed. And we walk in, it's a Friday night, and of course he knew the bartender and everything. We walk in, we get a drink. Even though I'm 16 or 17, I'm drinking already, you know. Nobody's cool for me because I'm Fat Andy's son. So I order a drink, we're drinking, and people, "Hey Andy, what's going on?" And about an hour later, maybe a little longer, he says, "Look around." So I look around, he goes, "You notice anything?" I go, "Not really, what's what?" He goes, "You see how empty the place got?" I said, "Yeah, there are a lot of people left." He goes, "You know why they left?" I go, "Why?" He goes, "Because I'm here." I said, what are you talking about? He goes, because they don't know if I'm here to hit somebody, kill somebody, abuse somebody. So they left. He goes, is that how you want to live?
And you said yes.
I was thrilled. I said, yeah, definitely. It got to reverse. I was like blown away by it. Like I said, oh shit, I want to be like that. But he thought it was going to like maybe be a
Yeah.
It didn't. I just spread into it. And then I started meeting all them guys, Nicky, like the guys, that's why, see, you went the gang route. Seeing Nicky on the corner, all the wise guys with the cars, like in the movie Goodfellas, with like when Henry Villas was explaining when he's a kid, the flashy cars, the girls, the clothes. So that was around me my whole life. And I knew like the guys you looked up to, I knew them since I was born. Because they were kids when they were with my old man. They were teenagers. They were robbing nickels. You know how they got with my father, right?
I just know about the fights between the F&R in the Eastern Park.
Yeah, but they were robbing jukeboxes. They were breaking into jukeboxes, robbing nickels and dimes out of jukeboxes. And my father made Mikey Gow knew them, because Mikey Gow was friends with Lefty, and made Mikey Gow bring Nicky to him. And he gave Nicky a job because my father had all the horse rooms. Remember the horse rooms?
Yeah.
And Nicky used to go with a shop because he was a kid. And he used to go pick up all the slips at all the horse rooms. That was his first job. And then he brought Lenny, and then he brought his brother, and then he brought all of them. And then he started beefing with John Gotti when they were teenagers. They started beefing with John Gotti.
Fights.
And then he jumped out the window. Remember when Anthony had the after hours on top of the car wash on Fulton Street?
I'm trying to think of Fulton Street car wash.
Fulton Street, where Vinnie Mad Dog got killed. Remember when Vinnie Mad Dog got killed up the corner?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there was a car wash.
Yeah, I thought that was Ciro's.
The car wash.
Yeah, I thought the car
now
wash.
Anthony had an after hour club upstairs.
Oh, yeah.
And John jumped out when Nicky was hitting him with the phone. He was hitting them. What happened was they were all in the back page on Eastern Parkway. My father's
Yes, yeah,
Eastern Parkway, the back page.
Yeah.
They were in the back page, and Anthony called up the back page and said, John and Angelo here starting trouble. And Nicky, my father, and remember Irish Augie?
Yes.
He was with them. Irish Augie was there, and they all went to the after hours, and they walked in and they started fighting. And Irish Augie had a knife, and he was going to stab John, and my father grabbed his arm. Otherwise, John would have he would have been gone. And my father grabbed his arm, and Nicky took the phone off the wall and started hitting him on the head with the receiver, because there was phones back then before these smartphones, and started hitting him on the head with the receiver, and he jumped out the window.
I never heard this.
Then they had.
I just used to watch the fights.
Then they had to sit down with Charlie. That's why if they weren't beefing, John Gotti would have been probably around Tony Lee and my own man. If he wasn't beefing with Nicky, because when they started beefing, they went with Charlie and everybody else went with Nicky.
You talk about split, and they were kids.
They were kids when they were teenagers.
Because then Johnny ended up being with Charlie, and they had the club on Rockaway Avenue.
Right. Then they
right off the East Atlantic Avenue.
And then they moved to Ozone Park. Yeah. Charlie was the first one in Ozone Park.
Yeah.
John Gotti and Charlie.
I know.
Yeah, because I knew
Jeannie was still coming around on Fulton Street.
Yeah, but then Jeannie had a club on Crescent and Sutter. Remember the club they had on Crescent and Sutter?
I don't remember
the Butcher?
I didn't follow Jeannie.
That's when I first met them. So listen, remember when I started dating Alice? When I met her in the Mr. Colossus?
I don't remember that. That was.
No, you were hanging out with us then.
You were dating Alice when I met you.
No,
you were Rex Reed, remember?
Yeah, but okay. So then when I just started dating Alice.
Okay.
Probably when I met you. So I'm dating Alice, and she lived in the Pink Buildings in the projects. So every day she would come home and she had to walk up Crescent Street, and they would all be outside the club. It was December. Tommy Sneakers, Jeannie, Johnny Koenig, all of them with Billy, the number guy Billy, that ugly bastard. What was his name? Billy. What was his name? Billy. What was his name?
I forgot. Oh, no, you do. He was a good earner.
Yeah, it was a big rich. He was a big number, right? Yeah. They were all all outside. And Peter Sicaro lived across the street. And Tommy Sneakers used to hit on Alice all the time.
All right.
So she told me. And I didn't know none of them. The only one I knew was Jeannie, because I had met him by the club, by the Bergen Up Fish Club. So We're picking up Alice one night to go eat dinner, and me and my father driving across the street, and they're all outside the club, right? So I tell my father, you know them? He goes, yeah. I said, one of them is sitting on Alice. He goes, really? And he pulls over. And we get out of the car. Hey, Andy, what's going on? What are you doing? And he introduced me. And he goes, did you ever meet my son, Anthony? And he introduced me to them. And they go, yeah, what's going on? He goes, oh, nothing. I'm going up the street to pick up my son's girlfriend. You know her, Alice, right? Maoni. They go, yeah, we know her. That was it. They wouldn't even say hello to her no more. She got mad. She goes, what did you do? They don't even talk to me no more. When they see me, they go walk in the club and they stop talking to her.
But you think they would have gave her respect just for the fact of who her family was?
Tommy Sneakers used to ask her out all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. She was a good-looking kid.
Yeah, I know that, but
Tommy Sneakers
that's where she came from. I would think you think there'd be a lot of respect. I know Junior Bacala them got a lot of respect in my neighborhood.
Junior.
But they were younger.
What about Larry?
Yeah. Well,
Larry, Larry, nobody knows, but when they had that war with Crazy Joe Gallion, Larry was in on that. Because Larry, you know who Larry was with? I bet you don't even know who Larry was with.
I thought he was with your father.
Never with my father.
Really?
No. Everybody thought that.
Yeah, because your father he was always around your father.
Sonny Francis.
Oh, really?
On record. When my father and him were kids, they hung out with Sonny Francis. When my father went with Charlie, Sonny, he had a choice to go with Sonny or Charlie, and he chose Charlie over Sonny because he said Sonny was an octopus. He said Sonny was an octopus. I don't want to tell Michael that. I never told Michael that. He's going to go now. So I said, why did you go with Sonny? He goes, because Sonny was an octopus. He said, at least Charlie let you keep some of the money. Yeah. So, and he went with Charlie, but Larry stood with Sonny.
Okay.
Now when the books got open and all of it was going in, my father and Emil wanted to straighten Larry out.
Really?
Yeah. And they went to Sonny to release Larry, and he said no. That's why Larry never got straightened out.
Oh, really? So why didn't they straighten him out?
That's what my father went to, because Larry helped them with that Pafachi war, and they never straightened Larry out. I think Sonny got mad at him that he wanted to be transferred from one family to another family.
So I really want to get into, I have questions, but I want to get into
Come on.
I just don't want to knock people who aren't here to defend themselves. Because I always heard Larry, a different story about Larry. I don't know the right word to say without using vulgarity.
Larry wasn't a raper like his father.
No, not a rapist, but it wasn't too far from it.
Well,
when it came to women and girls.
His father was a serial killer.
Yeah, I know that.
And he was a rapist.
I know that,
And Larry is a child.
But he also liked boys too.
The father.
Yes.
He's a rape.
Exactly.
Guys, girls.
Exactly.
And Larry was a child of rape. And Happy Maoni, who was his partner, made him marry Larry's mother because she knew the family. And the reason why the Dasher, who was in Murders Incorporated, that's what we're talking about.
Right.
The real Murder Incorporated. That's why the Dasher never got straightened out. You know, out of Murders Incorporated, you know the only one that was straightened out was Happy?
Yeah.
I never knew that. I always thought the Dasher was, until my father told me he didn't get straightened out because he was a rapist.
And that's what I'm not saying that that's what Larry was, but Larry was not far from, as far as
I never heard that.
womanizer.
But they were all womanizers.
Well, but he would go with anybody's.
But that's why we were womanizers, because they were taught us. That's what they taught us how to do.
But you didn't go with somebody's wife. You didn't go with somebody's. Well, most of us didn't. I followed a lot of those rules when I was young.
I broke a lot.
Even when it came to Tommy DeSimo, which I put that out there, is that I went and asked Nikki permission to make sure that Tommy was really gone and not just hiding out on the lam before I went out with her. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but she was no angel either before you dated.
I don't want to go there. I know that, but that's why they and because of respect for the daughter, we changed a lot of that in the book. But anyway,
so getting back to those days, so that was in the early '70s. So Larry, Neil wanted to straighten Larry. Neil loved Larry. No, Neil liked Larry, and
I know what's crazy about Larry.
Yeah, I like that.
I didn't like what he
Careless.
did.
We went to
No,
Florida.
he didn't. That's
He
what
gave us that credit card.
And then
Remember
it
that
was,
credit
yeah.
card?
Then he also gave us the place for the room, and then the guy locks the
Locks us
room
out,
and locks
yeah.
us out. We have no
Yeah,
place to
we
go.
got back
That's why he gave us the credit card.
Yeah, yeah. And then
Because we have no place
we went
to go.
Daytona Beach with that credit card.
Exactly. Yeah.
Daytona-
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we met them girls from Pittsburgh and
That was
Newport.
at the.
Remember, she said,
What was the name of that hotel?
The Newport.
No, it wasn't the Newport.
Castaways.
The Castaways.
It was
Yeah.
next, well, we went to the Newport.
Newport was where where Freddie was
Freddie
working.
had,
Yeah.
my father and Freddie had, but we were in the Newport when we met them girls from Pittsburgh and they tell using the Mafia. Remember? Using the Mafia?
I remember that.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and that's,
That's why I didn't take a real. I know Larry was a nice guy and all that there, but there was just something there.
look how they went. Larry died of cancer, a degenerate gambler, and Junior Bacala
Yeah.
got murdered.
Yeah. Well, he deserved. Well, I just.
Those are the kids, that they robbed Nicky, them kids
I
on
know.
the beach, and they thought it was little Freddie. And they wanted to kill little Freddie. And I brought little Freddie to Nicky, and he saw up and down it wasn't him. And then Nicky found out who it was. It was Junior and them two brothers. They took the 8,000 out of his pocket on the beach.
And then Junior had to straighten that out, fix that, and then the brother came and fixed.
Yeah, no, the brother, because of the FBI agent.
Oh, really?
So they were under investigation by the FBI. And there was a woman FBI agent that was undercover, and she started having an affair with the brother that she was investigating. And she was married to another FBI agent, and she started having an affair with the brother. And they found out, and the whole case got blown. She got kicked out of the FBI. And Junior, they killed the brother that was going out with the agent. And
Oh, I thought it was the guy because they robbed Nicky.
no, it had nothing to do with Nicky. It had to do with the woman, the agent. And then they killed Johnny Irish's crew. Junior was going to get straightened out with Johnny Irish's crew. My father was going to release him to
really?
Columbus to get, because Sonny Francis was a Colombo.
Right.
And then that happened, and they killed the brother, and the bone. They wrote a book. The bone. There's a book out. His bones washed up on the Miami beach, and they found his hip bone or something, and they identified it with DNA. And then his brother, remember Larry had the strip club?
Yeah.
I just thought of a lot of coke. Actually,
You mean Junior?
Junior had the strip club on Biscayne Boulevard.
Yeah.
Came out of it.
Yeah.
The guy ran him over with the truck and then shot him.
Oh, boy.
And then he got locked up. He's good doing life.
Oh, really? Okay.
I met John Gotti, and then he opened up Bulldogs. That's when I met them. When Paulie G.
Father opened up.
Bulldogs.
Yeah.
He opened up Bulldogs. Paulie G was running around with Tommy DeSimone, and he used to come there to Bulldogs to pick Paulie G up, and he used to tell me, "You want to come out with us?" And I go, "Yeah." And he used to tell my father, "I'm going to take your son with me," and my father used to tell him, don't get my son in any trouble. And I used to go out with him and Paulie G. We used to go to the Comrades Cloud Room. Remember Comrades Cloud Room?
No, I
on the
remember.
LaGuardia Airport?
No.
Tony Pep hung out in there.
Comrades Club. I remember going by the block.
They killed him. They shot him. They murdered Conrad.
Yeah, I thought it was under a different name though.
No, Comrades Cloud was
Is that where Pep had the beef? Okay.
yeah, that was
Okay.
like
I missed
on the Copa. We used to go to the Copa, get in like through the movies.
Well, you did all that because of who you
Yeah,
had.
Copa with us.
Yeah, but I couldn't get down there without you. I would have been able to get in there. That's one of the things that I didn't want to get around and always be considered Fat Andy's son's friend.
Yeah,
Because that's what I was considered.
yeah.
So,
Well, everybody was.
yeah, I know, but
Yeah.
I was different.
That's the
I was
reason
a little
why-
bit different than the guys
And
that
that's
you
the
had
reason
around.
why I got into all those fights, because I didn't want that label, and that's the reason why I got pinched on that case with the liquor when they went through the wall on the liquor well, because I didn't have to go. I could have stood home and got a piece of that, and I went and I got pinched, busting after we went through that wall for 5 hours.
Oh, well.
And then I told Freddie, go pull the truck in the driveway, and Freddie went up to the truck, and all of a sudden we heard Freddie, "We're surrounded, we're surrounded." And I looked out the window, and all I saw were cops and lights. And then we all hid in all different spots, and they found us all one at a time, and they beat the shit out of us.
Yeah.
They beat the shit out of us.
Yeah, Long Island was
And then I got 5 years. That's the first time I went to jail. I was 24 years old. I got married in the Lamia. I got married. I had 1,000 people at my wedding. Remember my wedding? You were at my wedding.
no, I was.
Where were you?
You the guys didn't invite me.
Yes, I did.
I was on the
Oh,
land.
you were on the land. That's
Yeah.
right. You were.
What year did you
No,
get married?
Joseph, you weren't on the land with Joseph.
I might have been in prison.
You were in jail because Joseph was in my bridal party. I got married in 77, October of 77.
What was I?
It's in the year,
no,
and when my brother's friend Tommy Cooley got murdered,
yeah.
I got
No,
married.
I was out in the street then.
So why did you come to my wedding?
I don't know.
Why did you?
Oh, you were mad at me at that time.
No, I wasn't.
You were too, because that's when. Listen, let's put the cards on the table.
What?
You were mad at me because instead of coming back around you,
Oh, you went with Nick?
I went with Nicky and them. Even your father was mad at me for that thing, but I didn't know that it was your dad. That Nicky was doing it for your dad. I thought Nicky was doing it because of my brother-in-law, because my brother-in-law was around him.
That my father got mad because of the murder that you got locked up for with Little Joe, when the guy accidentally got stabbed to death on Atlantic Avenue, and he hid you out all that time on the land.
Yeah.
What? And then where did you? Joseph got arrested in the. I was with Little.
Because Joseph kept going to Queens, and I said I won't go
when
back.
Joseph got arrested for that murder. We were in Esquire Dining. You were there.
No, I
newspaper
wasn't there.
reported
No, I
that.
was not there. I didn't go back to Queens. That's one
Yeah, but
reason
you
why I didn't
were
go.
me once when you put the newspaper in front of your face. Wrong with you?
No.
No.
Oh.
Well, anyway, the two cops,
Recognize Joseph.
and I saw him, and I go, Joseph, that cop recognized you, and I said, come on, walk out, and we went to walk out, and the cop went to grab me, like pushed the cop over the counter, and Joseph ran out, and the other cop was waiting for me. The other cop ran, and then I got arrested. I got arrested for obstructing government administration. I got arrested, and my father gave up Joseph by mistake. They took Joseph to 106
Because he didn't give. He had
and
only
was giving
ID.
up he had fake ID, and he gave them the name. And my father went there to bring him cigarettes, and he walked in and he told the cop, "Where's Joe the donor?" And the cop said, "Oh." So then he went up to they brought him in, and they took him because they knew who he was, and he told Joseph in the bullpen, "I just gave you up,"
Yeah.
and they robbed him up.
That was the reason why. You see, everything you said, I thought they separated Joseph and me. Because even when we were on the lam, Joseph started going because his family had money. My family didn't have any money. He was in a hotel
Yeah.
with his...
Yeah, Zant had Rosie. had
Exactly. Yeah. And they took Joey and they separated me. Know where they put me?
I don't remember.
Yeah. Well,
Not back by Sonny Pep's house. That stinky dog.
no,
Yeah?
that's when we came back together. They put me up in Rockland County,
Oh, I don't remember that.
wanting me to clean the pools.
Yeah.
I stayed about 3 days and I walked away with nothing. And then finally my brother-in-law went and got me and picked me up and brought me in. That's when they brought me and Little Joe together at that bar.
And when we used by Alice's house in Long Island.
Oh, that might have been one of the other spots. We were all over the place.
Yeah, and then Joseph got pinched in the Esquire Diner.
Right.
And then you got indicted after the murder in Broadcasters Inn.
No, I got locked up. I'll tell you the story because nobody's supposed to know this here. 'Cause
Well, everybody's been
we had the fight in your father's after hour joint. When he had the after hours on Liberty Avenue,
Yeah, right. Yeah.
84th Street.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nunzi hit me in the eye with a shot glass. I went after Nunzi. Your father was there
Yeah.
and broke it up. And then your father said to me, "What are you looking to do?" And I said, "I want to kill him." He said, "Then you would have to kill everybody." And I said, "I really don't care."
Yeah.
So your father said, "That's not going to happen." So I left. And when I left, I went to Nicky's house. It was like 4 o'clock in the morning, 4:30 in the
Yeah,
morning.
but Nicky wasn't straightened out yet.
No,
Yeah.
no, Nicky wasn't straightened out. And I said to Nicky, "What happened?" And he said, "Well, what do you want to do?" I said, "I want to go back there and kill him." And I said, "I can't have him do that in front of everybody." So he said, "All right." He said to me, "You could probably either get me killed than you killed.
Yeah.
But if that's what you want to do, go and do it." So I went, got a gun, laid it a block away from the club, and I believe somebody gave me up because that's when this cop Winters.
Maybe Mickey did.
This cop Winters came to my car. I was in Nicky's car.
Yeah.
And locked me up for possession of a weapon. And because Nicky's car got confiscated, Nicky wanted me to go back to the courts, even though I was on the lam from one of those murder cases. And when I went back for the case, that's when they locked me up. But they locked me up for the broadcasters. I didn't know nothing about it.
You weren't there that night?
I was there. It was my birthday.
Yeah, right.
But I didn't do the killing.
I know. But
Yeah.
you know who did the killing.
So when they locked me up, they said, you like to shoot people. I'm thinking, what the frick is this guy talking about? The last guy that
Got stabbed.
was stabbed. And then I found out I was locked up for that. And then they gave me up. And then this 106 precinct came and locked me up for the other murder case.
That's why you got street cred. That's
Exactly.
when you exploded after that, because I remember when you were in the Queen's House of Detention
Right.
with Stephen Sachs.
Yes. That's right. Yeah.
And that's when everybody knew that you didn't commit that murder.
Right.
The second one,
Right.
not the first one. Everybody knew the kid that got shot in the hat check. Remember how it happened?
Yes.
The guy that shot him leaped over and shot the gun and shot him in the head and then ran out. And everybody knew that you didn't do it, and you was in jail, locked up for it, and you didn't give nobody up. That's when you got the street cred.
And that's when, and then after I beat the case on trial with 5 eyewitnesses
Did you go to
against
trial, or you?
Yeah.
But the first one was a technicality. They threw it out.
The one with me and little Joe,
Yeah, Joseph got it dismissed.
well, he wanted to take a play.
Yeah.
And I told him I'm not taking no plays.
Yeah.
I didn't believe him.
Yeah, but then they got dismissed.
But first I had to go to trial for the murder case on broadcasters. And then when I beat that trial, Nicky and them were already hanging out on Mulberry Street.
Yeah, right.
And therefore O'Neill and all them knew about me, this guy who's going for murder, 5 witnesses against him, didn't take a plea, all this hype that they do.
And they knew who did it. They knew
Yes.
who did it.
And
They weren't going to march him around.
Exactly. And that's when I got a lot of credit on Mulberry Street. So right after I got beat that case, I started going back with Nick and he bring me to Mulberry Street.
Yeah, and then Mickey got proposed there. Forgot.
Yeah.
Right.
76, I believe that was.
Yeah, Nicky got proposed. Nicky, when that happened, and violence was just part of, violence just became the way it was. Like, it wasn't even like, just do it and that was it. Like,
It's the streets.
never lost any sleep over it, that's for sure.
Well, because that's kind of like, you accept that life.
Right.
You would have been a little bit different. For me, it was different because you had your dad.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're
It
right.
really
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
So anything was going to happen to you.
Yeah, they would have had to kill him too.
Exactly. And nobody was going to do that because your dad, everybody loved your dad. And your dad was held in high esteem in that lifestyle. With me, I had nobody to defend me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no,
I took it as this is my life. Either somebody's going to kill me or I'm going to kill somebody. That's
you were in a
left that
different
I
frame of
live.
mind.
Exactly.
We were together, but we got their different paths. That's how it goes.
Exactly.
And the coke yet still wasn't an issue because when the books opened, at first, the story, my father didn't want to strain out nobody.
And I give him credit for that. I really do, because he was very smart, because he knew that.
He knew it was going to happen.
Yeah.
He told me, I said, why? He goes, I don't want to make I made one person my equal, Tony Lee, and I'm not making nobody else my equal. And we were in, where were we? We were in, you know where we were? You know the bar next to JoJo's Club on 77th Street?
Yeah.
We were in that bar.
Mom's.
Right, we're in that bar. It was me, Tony Lee, your friend Nunzi that you wanted to kill, and my father. The four of us were in there, and Nunzi was telling my father, you got to straighten somebody out. You got to put somebody's name in. And he said, I'm not putting nobody's name in. And Tony Lee told my father, well, I don't care what you do. I'm putting Pep's name in, because he loved Tony Pep. And then my father goes, Pep goes, well, if that's the case, the only one we're going to straighten out is Nicky, and that's it. We're going to straighten out Nicky, and that's it. He came out first, because my father loved Nicky.
Yeah, I know.
Loved Nicky. Remember, Nicky used to stand like this, wouldn't leave till my father went home. Remember, like Napoleon used to stand there, never go home. So then they agreed on that, and they put Nicky in. And then Nicky, every day Lenny would drop Nicky off by my house. And they would be in my living room. And I remember I lived in the basement, and I would come up and I would listen by the door, and my father used to tell him, you're going to be reborn You got to forget you have no more enemies. And he started giving all that, I go, whoa, all that mob shit, and tell them you're going to get reborn, because that's what they believe. They were going to be reborn, and you got to put the family first.
The Gambino family.
Gambino family.
That life.
Paul was the boss. He told him, you got to, this is your family now. You're going to be reborn. If you have any enemies, you got to forget about it. You can't take advantage of people, because you're straightened out now. And every day, Nicky would sit there like a little kid. And then what happened was Jeannie Gotti got straightened out first. Remember?
Yes.
Before everybody, before John and everybody.
Yes.
And when Jeannie Gotti got straightened out, my old man got mad and went to Neil and said to Neil, why did this kid go in before Nicky? Because let me backtrack, because remember Carmine Mendoza?
Sure.
Okay. Captain in the Gambino film. Carl Gambino had a beef with Carmine Mendoza and wanted him killed. And Neil, my father, volunteered to do it, and he gave it to Nicky and Lenny. So Carmine Mendoza had a pool in his yard in Brooklyn, and every day he used to go swimming in the pool. And they were going to kill him in the pool every morning. And the day that was supposed to do it, the thing was they were going to drive around, and they had they had a time thing. They had to keep calling it to my own man before they got the okay. They'd keep calling it to him, and then Carl at the last minute changed his mind, and they called the Iron Man. They called it off, and my father called it off, told Nicky and Lenny to leave, not to do it. That was their end to get straightened out. That was a big Carmine Mendoza. I mean, Danny Marino was his nephew, his sons, his nephews, they were all made guys. That would have been a big thing. And when Jeannie went in ahead of time, that's why my father got hot, because of the Carmine Mendoza thing. And my father went in and told Neil, how could this kid go in before Nicky? What, are you kidding me? After the Carmine and everything, why did this kid go in first? And about 2 or 3 weeks later, they were at a wedding. I have a picture. As a matter of fact, I have it all over my pockets. I have a picture of them at the wedding. It's my father, Johnny Rizzo, the jeweler, the father, not the son. Remember Johnny Rizzo? Right. Johnny Rizzo, my Dave, Lenny, Nicky, Neil, Mike Talley. Remember Mike Talley, the captain they chased? They were all at a wedding, and at that wedding, Neil told my father, we're going to straighten out Nicky and Lenny, and we're going to do Lenny as a gift to you. And they made Lenny as a gift. Okay. And then they got straightened out. And we were waiting for them. Remember, I forgot the name of the bar. Remember that Charlie Looney had a bar in Brooklyn. I forgot the name of it. And the day of the ceremony, it was me, Tony Lee, Mikey Gow, and I forgot my father, and Charlie Looney was there. I think JoJo was there too. And we were waiting for them to come back from the ceremony, and they got straightened out. And after the ceremony, they came right to meet us. And then everything was good up until that point. That's when everything was good. And then JoJo still technically was with my father and Tony Lee. And Lenny, so they wanted to transfer JoJo to Nicky, because that was the brother. So JoJo had the quick Shylock business, but my father was never partners with him. My father and Tony just got an envelope every month. But the Shylock business was given to him. Rudy the fireman from back in the day, remember Rudy Greco? Sure. That was his Shylock business. Really? Right. And he was hot. He didn't want to get pinched. He had 5 kids. He was a fireman, and he went to them. He goes, listen, I don't want to do this no more. And JoJo, they asked JoJo if he wanted it, and he said, yeah. And Tony Lee taught JoJo how to be a Shylock. He took him around. He introduced him to the customers. He taught him what to do, how to do it, and they gave it to JoJo, and JoJo blew it up. Right. And he turned it into $1 million business. And he used to get an envelope every month from my father and Tony used to get an envelope for him, so they were never partners. JoJo tells Freddie Hart, I'm going to give Andy and Tony $150,000 when they release me. Do you think that's good? And Freddie Hart said, yeah, that's great, no problem. Next thing they know, my father's getting sent for by Neil. Gets sent for by Neil, and they go to sit down in the Reunite. And Neil tells my father, what kind of relationship do you got with JoJo? So my father goes, a father and son relationship. What kind of relationship do I got? They're like my sons. They're like my kids. What are you talking about? He goes, were you ever partners with him? He goes, what are you talking about? Was I ever partners with him? He goes, were you ever partners with him? He goes, he's with me. We're partners. He goes, well, why do you feel you should get something if you were never partners with him?
Really?
Oh my God. Smoke now, Neil saw the expression on my father. Now my father's ripping. He goes, what are you talking about? He says, what are you talking about? He goes, well, you were never partners with him, so why do you feel you should get something out of the business? So now they have the beef at the table. So they transfer Jojo to him and they go outside. My father goes outside and Neil comes out behind them and Neil tells my father, listen, don't raise your hands to nobody, because he knows my old man. He goes, I'm telling you, don't raise your hands to nobody. He goes, I'm always going to be your captain. He goes, but you know, this is how it's got to be. Don't raise your hands to nobody. But JoJo's the only one that you have to release to them. Everybody else is still with you. And my old man turns around and tells Neil, and how they're supposed to earn a living. They all work for him and them. Everything that they have belongs to them. So how are they going to feed their families? How are they going to make a living? If they're all with me and these guys don't want them to work for them, how are they going to earn a living? He goes, I don't want none of them with me. He said they could have all of them. They could have all of them. And my father stopped talking to him after that. And you know, my father blamed for it, and I think he was right. Charlie West. Because Nicky was like this with Charlie West, and my father told me, I know that little bastard whispered in Nicky's ear. Remember how short he was? Remember? The little Peter? And he said, I know that little bastard whispered in Nicky's ear not to give me, that he didn't have to give me any money.
Yeah, because he probably, Charlie West, I got close with Charlie
And
West.
I believe this. I believe my old man was right, that Charlie West, because Nicky would, and then my father stopped talking to him, and then
Charlie was a captain already.
Yeah.
It wasn't really about so much of a principle, but he did end because why?
My father felt that if they would have stood together, they would have had a lot of strength and they could have made a move.
This is the point that was trying to
Not
make.
my father.
It was about, that's what it was really
and
about,
money.
power and money.
Yeah. And
The
then
more
they stopped
money
talking.
you made, the more people you have around you,
Right.
the more
And then
prestige you get.
Right. And the only ones that stood with my own man were Skinny Dom, Nunzi, of course, Mikey Gow, the crew.
But they were with Judge for a little bit, weren't they?
No, well, not really. Yeah, but
They were around.
But they worked for Mikey.
It's not until your father opened up the club on Liberty Avenue that they went
Jojo
in.
opened up that club.
Oh, did he?
Jojo opened that club.
Before the club on 77th Street?
When they were getting ready to close Voldox, that was supposed to be a real legitimate cafe. Jojo opened up that club with my father and Tony Lee. The three of them were partners.
Oh, okay.
And then Jojo opened up the club on 77th Street, and then my father took Cafe Liberty, and Jojo and then this shit happened. They split up, and then Mike Talley was the captain. They put everybody with Mike Talley, Nicky, Lenny, and everybody's with Mike Talley, and then remember when Jojo had a beef? Johnny Bino had a beef with Vinny Asara.
Yeah.
Vinny Asara kicked him in the ass. Right? He kicked him in the ass, and Jojo went to see Vinny Asara had got made, and Jojo went to see Vinny Asara, and Vinny Asara chased him and said, you can't talk to me, come back with your brother. That's why Jojo hated Vinny Asara, you know that, right?
I did
never liked it. Yeah, but and Vinny Asara told him, you can't talk to me, go come back with your brother.
He did it on purpose.
Of course he did it on purpose.
Yeah.
And then fast forward, now these are all, and then remember you used to come to the bar, the Polish Hall, and Lenny and with Ronnie when he used to tease us, we used to what? Nicky, and used to break your balls all the time. Ronnie one on love my own man. He used to tell my man, I don't care, I'm always gonna come here to see you. He told him.
I did the same thing. I wasn't told to go by JoJo's club. I wasn't told to go by your father. But your father, they told me, he's going to abuse you because of what you did. Yeah. And I didn't think I did anything wrong.
Listen.
No, I understand it now, but at that point in time.
As much as he was a killer and everything wrong, man, that broke his heart. Nicky broke his heart. He he was never the same after that, when that happened. And then he got so bitter, and that's when he started going to Florida.
Yeah.
Because he got so upset over everything. He said to me, I'm going to go to Florida. I said, why? He goes, because if I stay up here, I'm going to get myself killed.
Yeah.
And he went to Florida. And it was all over that. My father was in the street. He was a gangster, killer. In the house, he was a teddy bear. His father died when he was 6 years. He was born in 26. His father died, my grandfather died in 32. His two best friends, who we talked about earlier, was Larry Bacala and this guy, Lenny Dodone. Lenny Dodone's uncle was Happy Mayoni, who was in Murder Incorporated. Larry Bacala's father was the Dasher, who was in Murders Incorporated. These families now became his father figures. So that's how he drifted into the mob. And he was a great father. He used to kiss me on the lips. He was my life. We had a great relationship. I'll tell you, and how today I feel right now, and this is the truth, and people ask me about this all the time on my podcast. When I know I'm fast-forward in a lot of the years, but this will explain it to you. He hated people that cooperated, and he could tell you that, hated them. And he was dead. If he was alive, I would have never cooperated. When I decided to cooperate, I was so guilt-ridden because I loved him and I knew how he felt about what I was thinking, that I used to pick up the phone and hang it up. I couldn't do it. I couldn't make the call. Just went on for a whole year. I was on the house confinement. I had the thing on my leg. I couldn't leave my house. I would pick up the phone, I'd hang it up. Every time I picked up the phone, I'd see his face in front of me and I hang it up. I couldn't do it. My father's crew split, okay? And it split, and most of them went with Nicky and Lenny because they all earned a living with Nicky and Lenny. And he went with Lenny. Nicky loved him, so he went with Nicky. So of course, there was a little resentment because I felt he should have stood with. We were his friends. Me, Little Joe, we were all together. We did things together. We came up together, so I felt he should have stood with us, but he chose to go with Nicky. So it got fractured, but we were together, still together.
Yeah, we were still hanging
But
out.
I think, and then later on, I think what kept us together was the cocaine, because he became a coke dealer, and I wanted coke. So
Yeah, Robert, what's your perspective on that? You just tell.
No, but he's telling us the truth. But my interpretation of it at that point in time, I'm 19 years old. Nicky, me and Little Joe were placed in Nicky in Brooklyn to hide us out for the rest of the time. Little Joe wanted to keep going to Queens, where the case was originally from. I didn't want to go back to Queens, and I had a couple other reasons why I didn't want to go back to Queens. He had a lot of friends around him. I didn't have a lot of respect for the friends around him. I had a lot of respect for him, but not for the friends around him. So I didn't want to go back that way. And I thought Nicky was the one that was taking care of us. So my obligation, my loyalty was to Nicky, not to his father. But I didn't know it was Nicky was doing it because of his father. I didn't know that. I only see Nicky in the picture. I didn't see his father in the picture anymore. So I started staying with Nick. So that hindered us a little bit. Even his father was upset with me because he's the one that first brought me around in that kind of lifestyle around his dad. And his dad felt that I should have stood with him. Right. And it's not Nicky. So that's
Don't forget it. At this time, we're still good guys. We're still, we're on top of the world. We know that. Like, we're to the point where I used to go to the Reunite, where the underboss of the Gambino family stood, and they used to tell me, because we were all together, how lucky I was that I had all these stand-up kids around me, that we were going to go places. That's what they used to tell me. They used to tell me, you're going to go places in the mob. We were going to go places. We were all in our early 20s. We were making money, we were violent, they knew we could be trusted. He stood up, he got locked up for 2 murders, he didn't cooperate. We all got pinched, we all had cases, nobody cooperated. We were dangerous, we knew how to make money, we learned that life, people liked us. So, that's another reason why my old man got upset too, because now the crew is fractured. He felt if everybody stood together, they could make a move. Like they would have became captains and they would have a lot of strength in the family. But that didn't happen. So he got resentful, and and he used to.
And probably even at himself, because he probably knew he shouldn't have straightened anybody out, because that was the chance of that. Now you're equal.
Yeah, but I think eventually he would have straightened Nicky out. I think eventually he would have straightened Nicky out. But I don't think Nicky should have done what he done over money. There's no reason why JoJo wanted to give my father money. JoJo told Freddie Hot, asked Freddie, because they were close, him and Freddie Hot. He asked Freddie Hot. He said it's $150,000 enough.
Okay, but this is the thing.
And that $150,000 in 1976, you know what kind of money that was?
I understand that, but that was more with them,
Yeah.
not with us.
But it still came back to you because you were with Nicky.
Yeah. Well, but the real reason was because your father felt that I should have been around him,
But
because
you
he's the
still
one
came
that was.
around. You and Roddy One always still came around.
Yeah.
And then you started hanging out. Then now the violence, he's violent. He's this kid. Listen, you want to talk about change? I mean, and we'll get into it later. This is a miracle. Like, forget about me. I still have I'm still struggling. This is a miracle. People would fear him. I mean, people were deadly afraid of him. People wanted to be alone with him. I never feared him because we grew up together, but people feared him. I mean, serious. I mean, I'm not glorified. People feared you. You had a reputation where you were dangerous. I mean, I shouldn't say you did bad things. We did bad things.
Yeah.
We shot people, we stabbed people, we hurt.
We did.
I mean, we did bad things.
Okay, but
And
this is the
that's
thing.
and stuff, and not to, when I first moved to Florida, I was on the beach with Stevie Sachs, right? And now I know everything I did. I mean, I know everything I did. I know the murders. I mean, my brother-in-law, I drove him to his death. I'm on the beach, and it's a beautiful day out, and I'm in the water, in the ocean, and I'm swimming, and Stevie's there, and I said to him, why me? What am I doing here? And he said, God forgives. He told me.
Amen. Yeah, this comes from a Jewish person.
Yeah.
Your brother-in-law is his name was Frank, right?
Frank, geeky.
Yeah.
He was a bad guy. He was a very, very,
Bossy was his name.
he was a dangerous guy, murderer, armored truck robber.
What happened to him in the street life was deserved. In the street way of thinking, what happened to him bringing him there and all that, in the street way, that's just how it worked. That's just how it worked.
So what happened with that whole thing?
Well, his sister was going with they were married at the time.
Yeah, no, they were married.
They were married.
What happened? He was.
His father's in prison.
Right. My father's in prison now. He's mobbed up, this kid, so he knows the rules. He started dating my sister. His friend Peter Sakara, who was another sicko, told Frankie, listen, don't date this girl. Don't date Fatty Andy's daughter. Stay away from her. And he didn't listen, and he dated my daughter. Danny Marino, a captain in the Gambino film, came to see me because he dated his niece. And he told me, tell your sister to stay away from this guy. He's no good. And my sister didn't listen. I went to my mother and my sister. I said, and they didn't listen. So now my sister goes with him. My sister, turns my sister on to heroin. They're sniffing heroin together and everything. And he's bad. He's got Uzis stashed in my mother's garage and flak jackets. And now I'm at this time I'm messed up on drugs. I'm free basic coke with this guy. Well, I'm out of my mind. All my life was the next one, more coke. Now my father's in jail doing 40 years, so I'm like in a dark place. And my sister marries him. I get clean. I go to treatment in 1988. While I'm in treatment, my sister is pregnant. She has a baby shower. The next morning, I call my wife up to find out how the shower went. And I get on the phone, and my wife tells me, that son of a bitch, last night he almost killed your mother. I go, who are you talking? He goes, Frankie. I heard screaming and yelling because we lived upstairs from my mother. I ran downstairs and he was choking your mother. He had her on the floor and he was choking her. And I jumped on him. I scratched his face. He threw me up against the wall. He ran out of the house. I was like, what, are you kidding me? Right? So now I'm in treatment. I'm in Vermont in the dead of winter in treatment. So I get out, and my mother is terrified. Forget it. Don't do nothing. He'll kill you. He's crazy. So I go see Tony. Now I go see Tony Lee, who was my father's partner. He's a maid guy. I go see Tony and I tell him, you know, Frankie beat my mother up. And he tells me, I know. So I looked at him, I go, you know? I said, well, what are we going to do? He goes, we're going to clip him. And now I'm raised in that life. Like, now here my sister's pregnant with this guy's baby, and he tells me we're going to clip him. And I say, all right. And I'm fine with it. So now in the mob, Hill knows, in the mob, you just can't kill people. You got to get permission, because they call murder work. Like when we were in the street, if somebody would tell me, like, he's a good guy, he did work, I know he murdered somebody, or he's a good guy, I know he murdered somebody. So you got to get permission to commit a murder, because murder brings heat, people get arrested. So you just can't randomly kill people, or you would get killed. So now Tony says, we're going to clip him, but we're going to do it the right way. So now I have to go visit my old man. So I go to visit my old man in the prison. He's in Virginia with Letty, in Petersburg, Virginia. Because now they all made up. Mickey made up. They all made up. My father and all of them made friends. We'll tell that story in a little while. So I go to the prison and I tell my father. Now you got to remember, guys like my father are egomaniacs. He'll tell you they're egomaniacs. I tell my father, Frankie beat Mommy up. The first words out of my father's mouth was, what does he think, I'm dead? He made it all about him. What does he think, I'm dead? I go, listen, evidently he really don't give a shit about you or anybody, because he beat Mommy up. So I tell him, I said, we want to clip him. But she said, so he gives it. Now this is the mob. Here I am, I'm a son visiting the father, and the father is giving me permission to commit a murder. That's the mob mentality. And we're having a conversation like we're eating, over a cup of coffee. Oh yeah, we're gonna go kill this guy. All right, yeah. And he goes, okay, and he gives me permission to commit the murder. I go back to Ozone Park and I tell Tony Lee, my father okayed it. Now we sent for Jeannie Gotti, who's a captain, because we got to get permission now from John. He's the boss. We sent for Jeannie Gotti and we tell Jeannie what happened, that we want to kill Frankie. He goes to John, who's the boss now. John loved my mother. For some reason, John Gotti loved my mother. And I had a good relationship with John. No matter how flawed I was, he always looked out for me. And Jeannie comes back and says, my brother okayed it. Now it's okay. Now my sister's still pregnant. She didn't get birth yet. So this is how could I say, this is how wonderful we are. So we decide we're not going to kill them till after the baby's born, because we don't want my sister to have a miscarriage or anything. That's how sick we are. So now we wait till my sister has the baby, and everything's planned already, how we're going to kill him. I'm going to pick him up. We're going to tell him the story about that, because he was a stick-up guy. We Tony had a safe house in South Ozone Park that had a lot of drug money in it, and he was going to go there and rob it, and we just wanted a piece, and we had everything set up. They were going to take him out on a boat, throw him in the Atlantic Ocean, and everything set up. So we wait till the christening. Now we're at my niece's christening, and he's there, and we're going to kill this guy next week. And he's there, and we're laughing, taking pictures with him. I mean, this is how sick me and him became. We're taking pictures with him and laughing. And then the day comes, we're going to kill him. I pick him, I go by my sister's house, I pick him up. He comes in my car, he had shorts on and a t-shirt and no socks and shoes. So I know he has no weapons on him or nothing. Now, I got to bring him there, and now I can't let this guy know what's going on because he's dangerous. He'll jump out of the car, whatever he's going to do. So I'm talking, laughing, he kisses me hello, and we're in the car, and I drive to the club, and Mikey Gow, who was Tony's brother, is sitting outside. I pull up, and I'm calm. I'm calm. I pull up, and Mikey's outside the club, and we get out of the car. Mikey, like we kissed before, Mikey shakes his hand and kisses him hello, and we walk in the club. And as I walk in the club, he's in front of me. I hear Mikey, because they locked the door from the outside. When I heard the door lock, that's when I got nervous. I got a little nervous, And they were sitting up at the counter and they had bagels and everything. And we went up to the counter and Tony made me and him bagels and we're eating bagels and drinking coffee and we're laughing and talking. And Tony Lee had a garden. Remember the garden he had in the back Cafe Liberty? He had a garden, tomatoes and everything. So we go in, so he says, come on, Frankie, let me give you some vegetables. And me, him, and Frankie go in the garden and he picks vegetables, Tony puts them in a paper bag and he hands Frankie a paper bag. And as we're walking back into the back of the club, Tony grabbed his arm and said, wait, I want to talk to you. And I kept walking. And when I got to the back to the bar, I gave Dominic, I said, Dominic, go. And Dominic grabbed the gun from under the counter and put it behind his back. And he went back there and he killed him and he shot him. And I looked in and I saw him laying on the floor. And then I worked in the number office and Tony said, okay, go to work, make out nothing happened. And I went to work and they took him, they put him in Dominic's truck and I went to work. And a couple hours later, my sister calls me and told me, Frankie never came home. I don't know what happened. I dropped him off on the corner. I don't know where this guy went. And then she's carrying on. Then later on, she calls me, you got to come here right away. He's not here. Frankie's father and mother are here. Now I go up there. His mother's there, his father. I just killed this guy. His mother's there, his father's there. And Peter Sakara was there. And now Peter Sakara is dangerous. And they want to go look for him. Now I get in the car. I'm in the car with his father and his best friend. And I'm driving around looking for this guy when I know he's in the trunk of Dominic's car, parked in the driveway. Dominic's getting down the driveway. And none of this fazed me. Now, this is where my mind was at. And I'm driving around with him and I'm telling him this bullshit story. And that was it. And he disappeared.
That was the life of that was just the life where it was, where you didn't have a conscience.
Yeah, no conscience.
So all the time that this is, the story that he's telling all this time, it's already pre-planned that this guy's dead.
Yeah, he's gone.
He's not dead yet, but it's planned.
Like this.
He's the Walking Dead.
Yeah, like listen, we went out for dinner with guys that we knew they were going to die.
Yeah.
We went out with guys we knew they were going to die, and we went out to dinner with them like it was okay. Like, and we knew like Thursday they were going to get killed, and we were out drinking with them and eating dinner with them.
Did your sister ever forgive you?
So what happened was So what happened was they were in denial of So he disappeared. They didn't know. We made out he ran away. Like we didn't say he was dead. Like we thought he ran away. His friend, Peter Sakara, and his father kept on coming to the club, to Cafe Liberty, asking us what happened, what's going on. And then Tony Lee couldn't take it anymore. And he chased him. He goes, stop coming here. I don't know where your son is. I don't care where your son is. And don't come here no more. And he chases both of them. A couple of days later, I'm in front of this, how I got in trouble too, when I got indicted for the murder. A couple of days later, Peter Sakara came back to the club. And I looked at him, I go, what are you doing here? Didn't Tony tell you not to come here? He goes, well, he was my best friend. So I told him, listen, I said, if somebody beat your mother up, what would you do? And he looked at me and he left and he never came back. So my sister was in denial of it for years. When I decided to cooperate, I made the feds, when they took me out of my house, I made them take me to my mother's house because I wanted to tell them what happened, to give them closure, my sister and my mother. So the feds took me by my mother's house, and I told my sister what happened, and she flipped out. She went out of mind. She started hitting me, and she flipped out, cursing, screaming at me, and she ran out. She ran away. She just ran away. And my mother was sitting at the kitchen table, and my mother just looked at me, and she went, I can't believe he made you do things like that.
She knew it was coming from her husband.
She said, I can't believe he made you do things like that. So, my niece, of course, don't talk to me. When I got sentenced for the murder, my niece told the judge to give me life. She wanted, but he didn't.
That's Frankie's
daughter that was born when he disappeared. And she told the judge to give me life. And my sister now, we talk more than we ever do. We talk like she knows what I did now, and we talk, but it is what it is,
Yeah.
But that's how we were raised. That's what we did.
But there's something that happened, at least for me anyway. Because one thing I always want to let people know who watch stuff like this, and even on my YouTube and stuff like that, I was taught, and I'm sure you were taught the same thing, that no matter what happens, you don't rat.
Yeah.
If people kill your brother, if people, whatever it is, you go to jail for the rest of your life, and guys are testifying against you, you still don't rat. You do your time, and then you handle it when you come out. And if you're doing a life sentence, hopefully you have some people around you that'll take care of that for you. So the ratting part is something that's taboo complete. There's no justification for it, no matter what happened to us. So I don't try to justify why I gave people up. I just say it this way. I just didn't believe in that life anymore.
Right. When I got clean in 88, he was still using.
Yeah.
Right. His father died. I got clean. His father died. I went and get him out of a crack house and took him to your father's funeral. Then you went to Florida.
Yeah.
Now I started coming to Florida with Nikki. Right. Then of course we all made up. Now Nikki was acting boss. My father then made up, and I started hanging out with Nikki. I came to Florida, and we knew you were living with your mother in Florida. You were working as a custodian, which you hated, right? And Nikki, who loved you, made me go get you because we knew you lived there. And I called you, and I came to pick you up by your mother's house. She lived in Coral Springs.
Right.
And I came to get you, and I brought you to Nikki, and that's how, and you were clean. Right. You weren't using, because I wasn't using, and that's how you got back into life.
Right.
And then we got indicted on that case. But when I don't remember when you relapsed, because then you went out with Donna.
We relapsed in Florida.
You went out with Donna. Donna got pregnant. You had your daughter. You're still doing good. And then you relapsed.
Yeah. That's the reason why I went to Florida. Nikki and them got hold of me because I messed up. I was supposed to get married to Donna. I had people coming in from Florida all over, and I relapsed. And they called off everything. So they had to call off everybody, say, don't come in. The wedding's not going to be done. They're not going to have a wedding and all that. Yeah. And then Nikki and them got in touch with somebody. I think it was Frankie.
Which Frankie?
I have to get his name now. Frankie.
Like Rapacola?
No. Jojo's friend. Little Joe's guy. Frankie. What's
Little Joe?
Frankie. That was married to you.
I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
You remember?
Yeah, I know it. Yeah.
I think it was him that they gave him money to get me on a plane.
Okay.
And in a nice way told me, because I was embarrassing everybody. Everybody. You, everybody.
I was surprised.
Because I was strung out. But I was really strong. I was really in bad shape. And then when Nikki brought me back and got me, I was doing good in Florida. Then when he brought me back into that lifestyle, I was doing both, working and doing that. And then I met a girl in rehab in one of the meetings, and we went to have a nice dinner. And before you know, she wanted to get high, and I got high with her, and I relapsed all over again. Then I got back to 96.
And in the interim, you got back in life. You broke down that building. You did a couple of bad things.
I did. Yeah, no, I did. I did what I was supposed to do.
That era between 88 and the time I went to jail in 96, I personally made the most money on my own that I ever made.
Yeah.
You didn't
give me any.
Yeah.
Did you say you burned down a building?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. In Florida, I burnt down a warehouse.
It was a job I was supposed to do.
It was an insurance job.
No.
It was job.
It was
Stan.
His cousin ratted on his son.
Right.
And I was retaliation. Right. It was a retaliation.
But that's what he did. Whatever we were told to do, we did.
We just did things. One thing that just to give you, when I started going around, that your father really didn't give me instruction. He was always for you. But when I started going around with Nikki would meant to me. I would be driving Nikki around. I would be with Nikki. We would have long conversations, walking around the block and stuff like that. Him schooling me in this lifestyle. And one of the things he told me from the beginning, he says, one thing you need to know. Actually, he told me two things. One was, whenever I ask you to do something, you just do it. You don't ask why. You just do it. I said, okay, no problem with that. He said, the other thing, he said, I'm going to tell you this is a good lesson for you to learn is never let nobody know what you're thinking or how you feel about them, because they'll use it against you. So those things stood with me for a long period of time. So when Nikki and them asked me to do something, I just went and did it, no matter what it was. It didn't make a difference.
Yeah.
But my cooperation came because of the case in Florida, and that's when we all got locked up for that case in Florida. His brother-in-law was already a CI, a confidential informant,
Your
and
brother-in-law Louis had a wire on for a year.
Yeah.
Taped every conversation we had.
so I got locked up for that, but also I was strung out on crack cocaine back in 96, homeless in 96, living in Brooklyn. And I got locked up for possession, for selling crack to an undercover
I was in
agent.
jail when that happened.
Yeah.
I was very
So I got that, and then the federal case, and then finally warrant officers came, found out where I was when I passed out in the streets, and took me to Rikers Island, and that was just the start of things for me. But I just
So somebody was tapping,
Now-
somebody was wired. Who
Yeah,
was so,
my wife Alice's brother was why he got arrested in Tampa. We didn't know about it. He got arrested in Tampa with 2 keys of coke. Just like in The Sopranos, when Pussy became an informant, he got arrested with drugs. They probably heard the story. So he got arrested in Tampa with 2 kilos of coke. They sicked him first so that he made a deal with the feds. They put him first on Tony Pep. They wanted this guy, Anthony Trentacosta, who was a made guy, who you grew up with him. They wanted him. They put him on Tony Pep first. What happened was Tony Pep got sick. And I started hanging out with Nikki, who at that time now is the acting boss of the Gambino family. And I start hanging out with Nikki again, and we're going to Florida. Now they know I'm hanging out with Nikki. The feds tell him, we want your brother-in-law and we want Nikki. And then they put him on us. And that's when Nikki made me go bring him back into the fold. And now Louis got a wire on. They're running around with Louis. We're doing things now down there. And a year now, I get arrested for bookmaking in Queens. I get arrested on a state case for a big bookmaking case. Book sports betting. It's legal now. I got an app on my phone. It's legal. But back then it wasn't illegal. It wasn't illegal because the government wanted to take over, but that's a show for another day. Yeah. So anyway, I get arrested on a big bookmaking case. I take a plea. I get 2 to 4. I'm in state prison, upstate New York, and I get indicted in Florida with him and Nikki and everybody because of Louis. I get indicted to Florida. They bring me back to Florida. The marshals come and get me. Now I'm in MCC in Miami, locked up, and he's on Rikers Island. And he's calling my mother up, telling my mother, I got nothing, I got no sneakers, I got no money. And my mother's telling me, Robert's on Rikers Island, nobody's visiting him, he wants to know what's going on, he has no money, no sneakers. I think
no attorney.
You know, my mother sent me $60, I think she told me, yeah, and a pair of sneakers. I said, oh, send him money and send him a pair of sneakers. So my mother sends him money and sends him sneakers because he's my friend still, even though he's cracked up, he's still my friend. He's on my case. I never in a million years thought he was going to cooperate. Now I call up the lead attorney on the case, this guy, Joseph Carrazza, who's Nikki's nephew, who we know since he's born. And I call him up and tell him, listen, Robert's on Rikers Island. He has nothing. Somebody needs to go up there and see him and let him know what's going on. He comes around and tells me, I'm not his lawyer. I said, what does that mean you're not his lawyer? We're friends. You know this guy all your life. What does that mean you're not his lawyer? Now I get upset with the lawyer. I go, what do you mean he's not your lawyer? So P.S., they got him on the burn. Now we're fighting the case. All of a sudden, I'm in my cell one night and there's a vet. That me and this guy, Ralphie the Fly, who was our co-defendant, is on above me in another cell. And we used to talk through the vent at night and stand up on the toilet bowl and we would talk through the vent. And I'm in my cell and I hear him calling me, today. And I hear him calling me and I get up and I go up to the vent and he says, Robert went bad, Robert went bad. And I said, what? He said, Robert went bad. And I said, we're finished, right? And I didn't get mad at him. I was mad at them for not helping him. I mean, I became mad at him later on, but at that point in time, I was upset with them. Now we have attorney visits. Now he's cooperating. Now we're finished between the tapes and him cooperating. We're done. We have an attorney visit, and on the visit, It's me, Nikki, Lenny, we're all in the attorney room with the lawyers, with Jerry Shondell, all big mob attorneys. And I go in the visit and I tell them, are you happy now? Are you happy that this guy cooperated? Is everybody happy now that nobody wanted to help this guy? That he's on Rikers Island? The guy, my mother had to send the guy sneakers. Is everybody happy now that he's cooperating? And that was out, and then that was it.
So Roberts, wait a minute. So you I guess it seems like you felt like when you cooperated, you were stuck, stranded, nobody was helping you. And then it sounds like you weren't the first. Somebody was already being tapped, was already cooperating, was walking around with a wire, and you guys up.
See, all that, yes. If I wanted to justify it, but the point is this here. This is the point in that life. No matter what was going on, what was happening, you did your time, you faced the consequences, you didn't give nobody up. So I don't use any of that. That's why I don't even talk about it. But if you want to talk about it, I had an attorney that nobody paid. I stood in Rikers Island for 4 months, every probably 2-3 times a month, going to court, waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning, staying in the bullpens until 12 midnight.
Yeah.
Because my lawyer was never going to court and they would just leave you in the bullpen. That happened continuously. So that was getting the best of me. And then I just felt this way. Because of my drug addiction, I was never I might have been able to run errands or did a couple of things, but I never would have got to the status that I could have got before the drugs came in, because I was really that bad on crack cocaine. That was going to follow me no matter who they were bringing me around. I understood Nicky and them in a sense. Here's a guy that we did so much for. Here's a guy that was really one of our up-and-coming stars in this lifestyle. And now he's cracked out on the street, and he's embarrassing every one of us. Everybody he ever knew, everybody we ever brought him around, he's nothing but a big embarrassment. So I understand that there. But because I was still on the case with them, I felt that they should at least give me a couple of dollars for commissary and maybe help me out with an attorney, because now I'm doing state, but the feds never came and picked me up, so I'm not getting any credit for the Fed case. So that was what was going on in my mind, that I felt abandoned by everybody. That's how I felt.
See, and
but there's still no justification for what I did. That's
so they punished him because he was an addict. Me, I got a pass because I was Fat Andy's son, and John Gotti legitimately liked me. He used to give me money when we were using, remember?
Yeah.
And when I got out of jail, when I got out of treatment in 1988, and I went to see John Gotti by the Burger Nut Fish Club, he asked me if I needed anything. He didn't want me stressed out, and I didn't have a car. And I told him I don't have a car. He actually bought me a car. So even though I was using all these drugs and taking money off everybody, I was in a different position than him. I was Fat Andy's son, and I sort of got a pass, and I got clean, and then I excelled again in that life. And then I got arrested in 96, and I brought him back into it because Mickey told me to bring him back into it. So I don't even know, I probably would have looked you up, but he's the one that brought it up for me to find you and bring you to see him, because I called you and said, Mickey wants to see you.
No, I was happy about all that, because I wanted to get back into that life.
Exactly.
And that he was going to forgive all the stuff that was done. So I was happy about that. But it just seemed like every time I got everything back, I was back on drugs again.
And then for me, now he cooperates. And I don't know now about the murder. I don't remember if I told him anything, if I didn't tell him. I don't remember.
Everybody's nervous. Let's put it that. How much does this guy know?
What happened was, when in the Feds there's guidelines, and I was in when he cooperated. So he put me. They had me in the conspiracy at a later date. When he cooperated, he gave them the right date. They put me into the conspiracy sooner, and in court, and I got 2 more years because of that. Yeah. At that point, so when I took a plea, so I pleaded guilty to they had us indicted for conspiracy to murder Louis and all these crazy things. Yeah. So when I took a plea to 10 years. I took a plea, and when I got the 10 years, I told the judge, thank you, because I was in the category 6. I could have got 20 years. And judge gave me 10 years. I thanked him. I went back to New York State because I had to finish my 2 to 4. I went back to New York State with a federal detainer, and they sent me to Attica, which was a terrible place. And you want to talk about not caring? I saw people get stabbed, cut. It didn't even faze me. And then I finished the 2 years, and then they took me to the Fed joint. I'm in the Fed joint. He's in the witness protection program. And 1999, my father gets out of jail. He does 13 years. He gets out of jail in 97. In 99, matter of fact, next week, March 19th, is the day he died. March 19th, St. Joseph's Day, but I know you don't believe in that anymore. St. Joseph's Day. It's a feast of St. Joseph. So he dies March 19th, 1999. Now there's a different crew of guys out there running the Gambino family. Pete Gotti, John Gotti's brother, is running it. He's a piece of shit. That's who he is in plain English. He's running it. Skinny Dom, another piece of shit. He's the captain, and they're running it. My father dies. They start sending for guys. So now the money that we were getting, the Ruggiano family, they start sending for these guys to bring them Andy's money, right? And they take everything. They leave me a little bit of something. They went so far as I had a guy paying my son's health insurance. They told the guy to bring them that money. That my wife Alice went to them and had a fight with them because they took her son's health insurance money. So now it's a different clientele out there. So I get out. I do 8 years and 3 months. I get out in 04. Now I'm proposed to become maid. So I got one foot in now. When my father died, I get a bad taste in my mouth. I get my first legitimate job, and I'm working driving a truck. But I'm proposed to get straightened out. I'm still going to become maid. I was proposed before I went away, but then I went away, and then Nikki. So when I'm in jail, Nikki steps in because he knows I was getting abused by these guys, and he gets me transferred to him, to another crew. So when I get out of jail, Nunzi, your friend Nunzi again, he become maid. He says for me and tells me, you have a savior. So I knew he didn't mean Christ. I said, what are you talking about? Who's my savior? He goes, Nikki's your savior. Nikki had you transferred to us. We're going to put your name back in to get made, and I'm going to service you until you get straightened out. I said, fine. But now I have a bad taste in my mouth. So I'm working for my father-in-law in his tuxedo store, and I'm there one day, and 2 feds walk in. And Jerry Conrad walk in, and I take them in the back. Go, what do you want? They say, Laura, you're in a lot of trouble. So I told them, who do you got? A crackhead's with? I said, what do you got? A crackhead telling you stuff? When I was talking about him, I said, what do you got? Some crackhead telling you that I did things? They go, no, we got more than that. They told us you're finished. You want to cooperate? I told them no, and they leave. I'm on a bench one day in front of my son's house. I put my phone on the bench, and I'm just wait for my son to come home. And all of a sudden I hear, don't move, mother effer. And I open up my eyes, and there's a gun right in my nose, and I'm surrounded by FBI agents. They ran me from the back. They lift me up. They handcuff me. They throw me in a van. They're screaming, you murderer! You're going to get life in prison. You're a murdering scumbag, and blah, 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 blah. And it was like, they say when someone drowns, their whole life flashed in front of their face. That's how I felt. Like I'm in this van and I'm cuffed, and my whole life flashed in front of my face, because now I know I'm pinched for murder. This is forever. And I'm in the van, and they take me to Queens Boulevard, and I go up, and they ask me if I want to cooperate, and I told them no. I don't want to cooperate. No. They go, you want to cooperate before Skinny Dom cooperates? Because he got arrested before me for the murder. I go, no, I don't want to cooperate. And they bring me to MDC. And I stood there for 2 weeks, and I got out on $3 million bond. And I got out, and I'm under home confinement, and I'm not working. And Valerie, my wife, is paying all the bills. And nobody's helping me. I needed $25,000 to give to Gambino, the lawyer.
Tony?
Right? Because what happened was once
That was the lawyer that didn't show up for
once
me.
they came, once I knew I was going to get pinched, I gave Valerie Tony Gambino's card, and I go, if anything happens to me, call this guy up. So when I got pinched for the murder, she called up Tony Gambino, and he came to court. He wanted $25,000. I didn't have it. Nobody helped me, which you know the story. Nobody helped me, and so I'm at an attorney meeting, and I'm at a co-defendant meeting, and Skinny Dom did. Skinny Dom's the guy that shot him. He's the guy that pulled it. I walked him in, but Skinny Dom's did the shooting. And I'm at the table with them, and we're talking to the lawyers, and we walk outside, and Skinny Dom says, when did your brother-in-law die? I tell him, the date, June something, 1980.
That's gonna did the killing.
And he goes, I know it. I wasn't there. I was in Florida that day. And I'm looking at him going, what? I'm sitting there with lawyers, and he slapped the table. I knew it. I was in Florida that day, and I'm sitting there with the lawyers, and I'm looking at him going, and I don't want to say nothing because I can't give out. So I'm looking at him going, and I'm going, what the hell's going on here, right? So now the attorney meeting ends. We walk outside and go, oh, what are you talking about? You in Florida that day? What? I don't get it. He says, oh, I got remember the travel agent next to Ride On Car Service? That kid was with us.
Yeah.
He said the kid, whatever his name was, Jerry, whatever his name was, he goes, Jeff is going to give me paperwork from the travel agent that I was in Florida that week. I go, really? I said, well, what about me? He goes, you can't do it for both of us. Yeah. Right? So now the wheels are turning. Now I'm cooperating in my brain. Because now I'm saying to myself, what am I doing? Like these people aren't worth it. They're not worth it. But I couldn't do it. Then I had some legal issues, free trial motions. I don't want to say what a lawyer's name is because they're still out there. I had some pre-trial motions going, and I needed $5,000 to pay the lawyer. And my friend, who paid the lawyer, Georgie, my friend Georgie, I had one real friend left. He gave me the $5,000 to pay this lawyer to do pre-trial motions, and but I needed help from Skinny Dom's lawyer, from Joe Carrazza. I needed help from him. So this lawyer calls up Joseph and tells him what's going on, and he tells her no. So I can't give you that because we're going to use that at trial, and it will help Dominic at trial. So the lawyer says, yeah, but at trial, it ain't going to help Anthony. It's going to help Anthony now. I need it now to put in this pre-trial motion because there's a statute of limitation here because this RICO, the bookmaking case, the time expired for them to use it as a predicate act. The RICO with the murder, because they needed a predicate act to go on under the murder. And he told her no. So he calls me up the next morning and he tells me, now they forgot people who loved me and my father, or loved my father. I should say they forget. And some people still respected me out of respect for him, even though he was dead. He calls me up, puts their whole life on the line, because I could have told them, what are you, crazy? And they tell me, listen, you need to call the government because these people are going to throw you under the bus. Because now I'm the last person with them. I'm the last person allegedly to drop him off. Right. Everything points to me. I knew Peter Sakara cooperated, and I knew that statement I made to Peter Sakara, and I still was confused about you because I don't know what I told you, or if I didn't tell you, I didn't know you said at the time. I know now, but I didn't know what you said then. And then the lawyer tells me, you need to call the government. And I put the phone down. Not this lawyer. I could have ruined this lawyer's career. And I put the phone down, I hang up, I go to sleep that night. The next morning I wake up, I get Jerry's card out of the drawer, and I give the card to Valerie, and I say, when you get to work, call this number. She calls the number. About 2 or 3 hours later, my doorbell rings, and it's Jerry and another FBI agent. They walk in, they sit down, and the first words out of their mouth, look, did you murder your brother-in-law? And I said, yes. And they stopped the conversation, and Jerry took a piece of paper out of his pocket, and there was a list of 10 lawyers. Of course, not every lawyer is going to defend cooperators, especially mob lawyers. And he gives me a list with 10 lawyers on it because you got to retain one of these lawyers. So I look at the list and I see Michael Gold, who was Eugene Gold's son, the DA of Brooklyn who tortured us, right? And he had an office in Pollock's, he worked with Pollock.
Okay.
Right? So I knew him from John Pollock's office. So I knew him. So I called him and I met him. He met me at a Long Island Railroad train station because he didn't want, so he met, because he was coming in from Manhattan. He lived in Long Island. And I met him on a train station and I told him what was going on. And he said, okay, he wanted $25,000, but he goes, but I know you have no money. So what we're going to do is, he says, after you cooperate and your family leaves New York, you own a townhouse, right? I go, yeah. He goes, well, I'll take my $25,000 out at the closing. So that was the deal I made with him, and he became my lawyer. And then he contacts me, and I met them the first time at the Waldorf Astoria. They rented a suite at the Waldorf Astoria, right? High class, because I was a high class guy.
As you are.
So I go to the Waldorf Astoria, and there's 50 of them in there.
Wow.
FBI, and the first words out of their mouth, tell me about murders, tell me about dirty cops, dirty judges, and I was there all day, and that was the beginning of it. And then you know, the rest is history. You already cooperated, and then they took me out of my house. They brought me to Jersey first. Then I went to Pennsylvania. Then I went to Michigan, and then I wanted to do this protection program, and they took me to Idaho. Want to hear a funny story about Idaho? Listen, you'll get a kick out of this. So now I'm in Idaho. Now imagine us in Idaho. Right? I'm in Idaho with my accent, right? So I'm in a Starbucks. And I'm drinking coffee. I'm reading the newspaper, and there's a woman sitting at a table. Nice looking, you know, well-manicured woman, you know, money. Because this was like a really nice neighborhood, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, like it was a high-end neighborhood I was in. And they're sitting there, and I go to leave, and one of them says, "Excuse me, sir," and she calls me over. So I walk over. I go, "What is it?" She says to me, "Are you from New York?" So I look at her and go, "Now, what would make you say that? I haven't even opened up my mouth." She goes, "What would make me say that?" She goes, "Look how you're dressed. You got a jogging suit on." She goes, "It looks like you just walked out of The Sopranos." She goes, "Nobody in Idaho wears jogging suits." And they adopted me, and that was it, you know. But when I cooperated, it was over. It was over. And now, and how guilty, he asked me a question about my father. To this day, and people think I'm crazy, but this is how I feel right now. I told my kids, when I die, not bury me with my grandparents, that I'm so still guilt-ridden that I think my father's so mad at me that I don't want to get buried with him. That's how.
Okay, well, maybe that did help you, because them men have no guilt anymore. They're not mad at you. Trust me. I know that, but it's all your feelings.
I'm scared to be buried with him. I told my kids to bury me with my grandparents.
All right. Well, okay.
I don't know how you feel that cooperating.
Listen, I understand the rat and all that. I understand everybody saying that, because if I was in that lifestyle, you said it against me.
Yeah.
So I said it against Sammy Gravano and other guys that ratted. So I believe that I don't knock that, because that's what they're supposed to think of me.
Yeah.
Well, finally, what I say is what the Bible says: the truth shall set you free. So I didn't lie about anybody trying to get anybody convicted or trying to do anything to get more esteem with the government, more favors from the government by giving people up that I really didn't know much about, making up stories.
Yeah.
I just told the truth.
Yeah, me too.
That's all I did. So I don't feel any guilt with that. I really don't feel any guilt.
I don't feel guilt over anybody except my father. And not guilt, I just know how he felt about cooperating. Like he was so... Listen,
but you want to know something? But your dad, back in the way he was raised in that lifestyle, if he would have seen it today, and he had to see it a little bit today.
That's why I cooperated, because they were not financially. These guys were cheats and out for themselves.
Exactly. And I don't even know how much of that wasn't always like that, to be honest. Well, maybe we just didn't see it because we were surrounded in sometimes when you're in the middle of something, you can't see what's going on around you.
Right.
So, but I have no, because look what my life turned out. Look what I'm doing today.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, and that's when So now, when I cooperated, when I forgave you, because I wasn't mad at you, once I
Listen, if
cooperated,
the truth didn't matter. If you would have seen me in the street, you would have killed me.
when I was in the life,
Or you would have brought me into the club.
I would have brought you to the club. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. Because, but not because I hated you, because that's the way. That was what I had to do. That was the rules.
Exactly.
Right. But when I was in the program, my mother calls me, and she says, "Robert's on TV." I said, "What do you mean Robert's on TV?" She goes, "He was up that 700 Club." She goes, I was watching, she used to watch the 700 Club. She goes, "I'm watching the 700 Club the other night." And she goes, "Robert was on." I said, "Robert?" I said, "Robert?" So now I know, to me, you're Robert from, Robert.
Right.
I go, "Robert was on the 7, what the hell is he doing on the 700 Club?" So I YouTubed it, and I saw it, and I watched it, and I heard you say, "With the Bible on my chest, with the selling, Rikers Island." And at that point, I let it all go. And then, now I'm in Michigan, and I hated living there. I'm in Michigan, my wife kicks me out. Because what happened was, I feel, and I really don't talk about this much, I feel like my family knew what we were doing, but they were in denial about all the violence. Even with my father, my nieces, my cousins, and everybody, Fat Andy was their run, the apple of their eye. They were in denial. He really did that. Yeah, he really chopped people up. Yeah, he really did. Yeah. And how do I know that? Is because he told me. He used to tell me about murders he committed. That was my father-son conversations. Oh yeah, the first murder I committed was the same like you. The Charlie Wagons took him outside and asked him, "If I asked you to kill somebody without asking any questions, would you do it?" He goes, "Yeah." And he said, the next thing, they picked me up a week later. I got in the car with Charlie and another guy, and I whispered in the guy's ear. And me, like a jerk, I go, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "I whispered in his ear." So now they're in denial of it, you know what I mean? And
But look what we're doing today.
Yeah.
Man. So at least
That's
now
the
you feel
point I
like
wanna
you have a
make.
purpose and a plan.
right now I'm in Michigan. Now I know what you're up to. I'm in Michigan, and the phone rings. I'm the clear blue sky. I'm miserable. The phone rings, and it's Stevie Sachs, right? And he tells me, "Listen, I'm running a treatment center in Florida. I just spoke to the owner, and now I'm 60 years old. I have no skills like you.
Right.
I can't even fix a flat to this day. I'm used.
I'm still that way.
Yeah, I don't know how to use this. My father, I don't know how to do nothing.
Right.
No, I don't know how to do the computer. It's Chinese.
And what you know how to do, you don't want to do anymore.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So now he tells me, "We think you can make a really good counselor." I said, "What counselor? What did I know about counseling?" He said, "No, with your life experience and everything you overcame, we think you would make a good counselor, but you got to go to school." And I go, "Stevie, I'm 60 years old. I got to go back to school." He said, "Think about it." So I prayed on it. I thought about it. I talked to a couple of people in Michigan, and I decided to do it. I got my cat, Mikey the cat, and we drove to Florida, and I went back to school, and I became a counselor. Nobody knew who I was. Nobody knew who I was. Then I get a call. Who called me to tell me you want this? JJ calls me and says, "Robert wants to talk to you." Yeah. And then I told him, give him my number. And then we started talking.
Yeah.
And then the phone rang again, and it was Johnny A. Light.
Yeah.
And Johnny A. tells me, "Listen, there's a guy in London that wants to talk to you about putting you in a show." But like, who thought this would ever happen? I go, "Put me in a show? What are you talking about?" He goes, "Yeah, they're doing a show on National Geographic, and they keep hearing stories about you and your father, and he wants to talk to you. They want to put you in a show." So, me, the first thing I said is, "You going to pay me?" No, I won't, right? Yeah. So I go, "Is he going to pay me?" He goes, "Yeah, he's going to pay." I said, "Tell him to call me." So he calls me. This guy, Max Stern, calls me from London, and he tells me, "Listen," we start talking, and I tell him the car story that John Gotti bought me a car. That was it. Yeah. After I told him that, so he goes, "You have to be in the show." So I did the show. Now, but I didn't do it right away. So now I have to reveal myself. Because nobody knew who I was. Only Stevie knew who I was. With my daughter and everything, and we talked, and I decided to do it because I wanted to get my story out there for two reasons. I know I could help somebody, and I wanted to earn money. Mm-hmm. But it was, and I thought maybe if I got my story out there, I could help somebody and help myself, which is a win-win, right? That's why treatment is a win-win, because I was working in recovery and I was earning a living doing it.
Right.
So I decided to do it, and I did the show. I did National Geographic. Narco was drugs, bugs, and the Dapper Don.
Okay.
And did good. And then I got a manager, and then I got a podcast, and now here we are. I'm talking to you, and where you listen.
Yeah.
I don't want to reveal where you're living,
No.
but I have no.
It's all over.
Yeah, I have no. It doesn't even faze me that we talk. You know what I mean? Like, doesn't even faze me what happened anymore. Like cooperate and not cooperate, because that. I mean, look what we accomplished. Look what you accomplished. Nobody listen. When I tell people that know us, that what you do, that you got Robert Borelli, this, and they can't believe it. They go, Is he for real? Is it real? Is it the truth? I go, yeah, it's definitely the truth.
I'm getting a lot of feedback on the YouTube that we did. People just saying he's a phony. Matter of fact, some guy just recently wrote, I grew up with Robert, and he's still living in the streets. He's full of baloney. So I don't know how they get.
You know, and I know it. If 30 years ago,
Oh yeah.
someone would have told us that we were going to be rats, what we would have done to them? And to kill them.
Yeah, exactly.
And I tell people that, I said, if someone would have told, if someone would have told me 30 years ago where I would be at today, I would have probably killed them.
But in the same, I feel that way with God. If God would have told me everything He was going to put me through to get to where I am today, I would only leave me in prison.
And that's why I struggle, not as much as I used to with the why me thing, because like Frankie didn't have a chance to get with God. Little Joe didn't have a chance to get with God. Philly didn't have a chance to get with God. All these guys that died or were murdered. And, I played a hand in them not getting with God. So why me? That's what I say. Why me? Why did these people die before they knew you and I got it and I didn't? Like, why? Why? Maybe, I don't, I still don't know why. I think it's because maybe what I do now, but, the couple of people I have touched and helped.
Well, I look at it like this here. I want to make sure I don't sound too self-righteous in the sense, but you're honestly more interested in saving people's lives as far as from alcohol, drugs, and all that kind of thing. Me, I'm more interested in saving people's souls. So it goes hand in hand, because if you can get them clean, then maybe I can get them to Jesus.
That's the first step, is get clean.
And
listen, you wouldn't.
No, the first step for me was get Jesus.
Yeah,
that's what got you clean.
But not everybody has an epiphany like you had. Some people, like I had to work on that. Like when I got clean, I was godless. When I first got clean, I was still in the street.
I know, yeah.
I got clean.
You got clean for a lot of different reasons.
I got clean to get made. I got clean because I wanted to become made.
Exactly.
That's why I got clean.
Yeah.
But as time went on, and I started to develop a conscience, and then things that didn't faze me started rubbing me the wrong way, like banging out credit cards, chop shops. Every penny I got was from illegal activity.
Yes.
I took a husband and wife's, I extorted their vending company and chased them out of New York.
I remember
You came on to sit down with me. He came with his father in a Rubis. He thought we were going to kill him. Steven. And I told him, what did I tell us? I told him, you came here with your father. What if we were going to kill you? He would have got your father to kill you too.
You guys familiar with this guy, Joseph D. Pescone?
Okay.
Yeah.
That's Connie Brasco.
Yeah.
So I got a little funny story about that. So we used to hang out when my father went to live in Florida. We used to stay in this hotel called the Diplomat, right? In the Diplomat. And they used to come there, Lefty Guns and all of them used to go to the Diplomat. So now the movie comes out. Years later, the movie comes out, and I'm watching the movie, right? And at the end of the movie, they showed pictures of the real people. And they showed him with them, And I used to talk to him. I go, oh shit, I know him. It was him when he used to hang out at the Diplomat with them. Because in the Diplomat, my father and them had cabanas. They had the cabanas wired the feds. And when I saw the movie, I saw him in the picture, and I go, oh shit, because in the movie, that scene is in the movie. They're in Florida at the Diplomat. That's when they were going on the boat and all that. And I was there when that transpired.
I was in prison with some of them.
Yeah.
In MCC.
Yeah. But Lefty.
And Lefty got moved off the floor to the 9th floor. And people think, usually when you go from the 11th to the 9th floor, you give it up. But they ended up finding out there was a hit on his life.
Yeah.
And they had to put it in protective custody.
Yeah. My father always told me that was a desperado crew. Yeah, the desperate. They were always they're true, and they're breaking open the meters and everything. They were desperados.
Yeah, but they used to come to O'Neill's club all the time. Yeah.
But my opinion about him, that he committed murder. That guy, he got people murdered.
Yeah. But look what they did to Lefty.
Yeah.
They knew that Lefty was going to get killed, but they let him walk into it.
He got people murdered by doing what he did. I mean, they had an opportunity to cooperate, but they weren't going to never cooperate, them guys back then.
Well, I mean, I think it's a lesson that you just don't bring anybody around because they're making money. And that's the key thing. Yeah. A lot of people got in trouble because people came around making a lot of money, and they were going to give you this and they were going to give you that. Yeah. And a lot of them were informers. Yeah. And the government was giving. Your brother-in-law, how he got me, was through a cigarette load.
Yeah. Yeah, Louis, yeah.
Yeah, that's how he got me. And of course, I knew who he was. Yeah. A little bit different than a stranger coming in. But anytime you presented big money, you had to buy it. Exactly. And they would just welcome you in because you made money.
He got to do that for all that length of time. I mean, he was this close to getting straightened out.
I know.
They pulled him out when he got proposed.
I know. I seen this.
That's the truth. That's true. They actually proposed that.
I know. Well, that's why he had it.
I don't know why they didn't let him get straightened out. That would have really been crazy having an FBI agent straightened out. Holy shit.
You didn't think about it that way, but I know because she was going to straighten him out, that was his death
sentence. And they asked him to do a piece of work to it.
Yeah. Some of it's in the movie itself. So. Yeah.
What about there's a couple of these guys. You mentioned one of them, but there's a couple of other guys that are in your guys' former family. What is your relationship with John Alight?
John Alight.
Alight, yeah.
Well, I know Johnny way back, so.
Yeah, I know him since he's a kid. My brother Albert was actually his Little League coach when he was a kid, and he was a really good baseball player. He could have been a professional baseball player, but he got hurt in high school. And when I went to jail in '78, he was a kid. And when I was in jail, when I came out at the end of '80, he was hanging out with Junior. And my brother, when he started hanging out with John Guy Jr., my brother actually told him to stay away from him. And when I got out of jail, they were making money. And I told my brother, how did you let this kid, he's supposed to be with us. How did he wind up with John Jr.? And because my brother was in a different frame of mind. Yeah. But my relationship with him now is okay. It got a little hazy, rocky, because I do things with Sammy the Bull, and he's got a beef with Sammy the Bull. Yeah. But we're friends.
Yeah.
He got me into this. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you. He's the one that got me involved in the shows and he did his part. Him and my cousin Gene, I was on their podcast the first time. They really invented all this stuff.
He got used for me because he wanted your brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I told
my brother was tight.
My brother was told your brother was not. And then I said, what about Anthony? And he said, see if you can't touch him. Yeah. That's how I got touched. I gave your phone number, and then asked me.
He also cooperated with the feds, correct?
Yes, yeah. He was a killer. He did work with Junior. He got arrested on the case in Tampa, and then he got caught in Rio de Janeiro. He was on the lam. He had money all over the world. He had made a ton of money, and then he decided to cooperate. Yeah, he cooperated against
Sean Jr.
And he testified at a couple of trials. He testified at Charlie Knig's trial.
Did he?
Yeah, sure.
What did you know about Charlie Knigg?
A lot.
Really?
Me, Peter Sicara, him, the three of us testified at Charlie's trial. But he was a serial killer.
Yeah, I was supposed to, but once again, I just said,
Serial killer, he was crazy.
yeah, I know. Oh, that I know.
That's man. It seems like the federal government had a certain beef with the Gambino family, man, because there's a lot of these individuals that you guys are aware of, and it seems like the federal government was able to get to quite a few of them.
That's not uncommon. It's not just the Gambino crime family. There's every crime family, but this is the only one that we know about because certain supervisor boards for certain families, they would.
Right.
You have 5 families, you would have a supervisor for each of those families, and then have agents to infiltrate them or get information from them, surveillance and all that stuff. So we're just talking about the family because we know about it, but all 5 families were under the scrutinize of the FBI.
Every family had a task force of FBI agents.
Right.
Like there was a Gambino squad, a Casey squad, a Genovese squad, and believe me, they live and breathe, and their whole purpose in life is to put, if they knew you perpetrated an act of violence, that you were suspected of a murder, or they know for sure you committed a murder, their whole purpose in life is to put you in jail. When I was cooperating, my handler used to, 9, 10 o'clock at night, my phone would ring. I go, yeah, what do you want? He goes, oh, I'm out walking my dog. I need to ask. I said, you're walking your dog. What are you calling me for? Their whole purpose in life is to put you in jail. And once they know you perpetrated violence, you were capable of violence, and they put that bullseye on your back, you were finished. They knew that when I cooperated, they told me things I forgot. They told me.
They had all the information.
Yeah, they told me things that I whoa, how did, and then it would come back to me. How did you find that out? We know everything, they told me.
Yeah, I believe there was a lot of,
CIs.
without a doubt.
Taking money.
And still today, probably.
When I got out of jail in 92, my son was in Ozone Howard Little League, and he was playing in the same league as John Gotti's grandson, Frankie. I was on parole. I went to the game. My son's team was playing John's grandson's team. This was in 92. I went to the game. Who comes to the game? Pete Gotti and John Gotti Jr. come to the game. I'm at my little son's Little League game. So we're talking. The next day, my doorbell rings, ding, 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 ding. I open up to 2 FBI agents. What were you talking about from your 2 friends yesterday? What are you doing? You crazy? I said, I was at my son's Little League game. The guy went like this to me. He goes, well, listen. He says, he went just like this. We have a room full of money. He says, how's $1,000 a week sound? Yeah. This was in 1992. I cursed him and I slammed the door. A week later, they came back to give me a subpoena. Yeah, that's how they roll. Yeah.
Well, so another guy in your guys' former family, Roy DeMeo,
serial killer. I don't know if he.
Boy, he was with the Gambinos.
Yeah, he used to come to the Reunite.
I know that he came around, but I thought didn't he have his own little crew?
No, he was with Nino Gaggi. That was Nino Castellano. Nino Gaggi was his captain. He used to come to the Reunite, and I'm telling you, when he walked in, the atmosphere changed. The place got a little quieter. He was good friends with my father and Tony Lee. I used to go to Gemini Lounge with them. They used to go there once around to see him and drink. But he was a serial killer. He and Sammy the Bull always talks about it. He was terrible, chopping people up. He was a bad guy. That's why they killed him. His own friends killed him.
When did he pass? When did they do work on him?
When they killed him, right before John Gotti became the boss. They killed him when Paul Castellano. They all got arrested on a case. Paul got arrested on the commission case. They got indicted on the commission case, and then Paul got indicted on another case with Nino Gaggi, and they were exporting foreign cars, stolen foreign cars. They were exporting them, and they all got arrested on that case, and that's when Paul had him killed.
So Paul put the order on.
Paul gave the order to kill him. I got that from Sammy. He said Paul told Nino that he had to go, because then they were fed up with him. They knew what he was doing. chopping people.
Well, he's just for the sake of killing. Not why he was getting permission to do these.
No, they killed him because of who he was. He was.
What I'm saying. But he never got permission for a lot of those killings.
Yeah, no.
Just killing people.
Yeah, they were killing people.
Okay.
They were bringing them up to the apartment and hanging them, chopping them up, and they were crazy. He taught. When I was in school. Kevin Kelly was a Westie. He was my cellmate. The Westies were with us, and Roy DeMayo taught Jimmy Coonan how to chop bodies up, and they used to call it the Houdini. We're going to make him do the Houdini.
Yeah,
yeah.
Disappear.
So talk a little bit about another one of your former members that very notorious, very infamous, Sammy the Bull Ruggiano.
Sammy the Bull, I met him when I was a kid. He was in the construction business. When he first got straightened out, my old man had that drywall company, and he went to see him. That's the first time I met him in his office, his construction office. I never really knew him. He hung out in Bensonhurst. I used to go to his Plaza Suite. He had the disco Plaza Suite. I don't know if you ever went to it. And I would go there. My old man used to go there. And of course, my old man used to go there because my sister hung out. My sister started hanging out there with Lulu and all of that in the Plaza Suite. And that was his after hour. That was his disco. The last time I was in that club, Ali Boy Persico was in there, who became the boss of the club. And it was me, Ali Boy Persico, my old man, and my sister, and some other people. And then they killed the guy that owned the building in front of the place. The Russian, whoever he was, they killed him, and then the place closed. Then I didn't see Sammy, and then I didn't see Sammy again till he became the underboss. And he used to stand. Well, I don't know if you were coming around there. Were you coming around when John became the boss?
No, not too much.
Yeah.
But John became, hold
You were hanging out with his
age.
He was hanging out.
I was hanging with the bill at the time. Yeah.
And I used to walk into the Reunite, and Sammy would be standing like this. I told Sammy too, he laughed. I remember Sammy, and he would be standing like this. And Tony used to get so mad, and he would stand like this. And if you want to shake his hand first, he used to go like this. And he used to shake John's hand. John would be sitting down, and Sammy would be standing up. Tony used to get so mad.
That crew was always big with that there. I remember one time I walked into, I forget the hippopotamus.
Yeah, Hippo, yeah.
And Jeannie and them were there, but everybody was in front and Jeannie was sitting down. And I walked in. It's right after I got bailed out on the murder cases. And I shook everybody's hand. Hello. Then I went to Jeannie to shake his hand. And he gave me like a little snub.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I mean, I didn't mean to embarrass you. He said, if you embarrass me, you'd know about it already.
Yeah.
That was their big thing.
But Sammy was a killer. Sammy was a gangster.
I knew about Sammy. I met Sammy a couple of times here and there, but I really don't know much about Sammy.
You guys, Robert, you mentioned this to me, and maybe you guys can talk about this. There seems to be a difference between some guys that were, more street guys and more guys that were maybe, a little more polished. They didn't get their hands dirty. There's definitely a distinct difference between...
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
There's racketeers and there's gangsters.
Well, but except for Jimmy Burke. Jimmy Burke did both. He was a good earner.
Yeah. But like, I would use Michael Francis and Nicky. Or my father even, or Sonny Francis's father. Michael Francis was a racketeer. Fat Andy was a gangster.
Yeah, okay. I mean, that's how I consider myself, more the street guy.
Right.
There's a difference between guys that are good earners, get into businesses.
Yeah. Right.
It's kind of like, I don't know how to write, but for me, it would look like it was more involved with the politics of the mob, where I was completely opposite. I didn't really care about what was going on as far as all that stuff.
I did.
I was just lived by the streets.
And the mafia, it evolved from when my father got into it. You had to commit a murder to become made. Eventually, in the 50s, when the books reopened in the 50s, it started with if you were bringing in a lot of money. And then in 76, it became all about money. But if you did work, it would get you made faster. But then it became money. Like, so Charlie Wagons, this guy Charlie Wagons, he proposed John Gotti, my father, Angelo Quack, Jeannie. He proposed a lot of people that all did work. And his claim to fame was he used to tell people, all my guys got it the right way. Like Clifford, somebody. Yeah. So that's the mall.
Yeah, but it even changed a little bit even then, because now if you were just involved with it, in other words, if you dug a grave, you got credit for it and stuff like that.
Crash car.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's a little bit different than actually doing the killing. You
committed a murder. There was more than one person. There was guys crashed cars and this and that. And, you know, it was a whole big...
And my opinion of it, just my opinion, is the guys that were doing the digging or the crash cars, really maybe they didn't feel was capable of doing the killing themselves.
They felt they were capable of standing up.
Well, yeah.
Who is Anthony Delicato?
Anthony Bruno. He was with the Banana family. He was a captain. His father was one of the 3 captains that got killed. He was Anthony Bruno. He's married to Jimmy Burke's daughter now, Kathy. I don't know if you ever met Anthony Bruno. He was in Allen, my old man. Yeah, I know him. I was in jail with him when I got pinched for the murder in 2005. He was in MCC. He was on Vinnie Gorgeous' case.
Oh, yeah. I know Vinnie. A lot of these people I don't know, because I was already an astronaut without a spaceship.
But you mentioned Michael Francis as kind of being not really a gangster, but more so kind of a business guy. It seems like he's that way now. I mean, just when you look at him with the lines and all the stuff he's got going on, he seems to be very business minded still.
He's very intelligent. I mean, I know him good. I did a lot of things with him on my podcast. I went on his podcast. He comes on my podcast. He's very smart, very intelligent, and he's a good earner. He was always a good earner. He was one of the richest mob guys ever. He was bringing in millions and millions of dollars a week, millions. His scheme with the gas company, with the Russian mob, the business he did with the Russian Mafia, he was bringing in millions and millions of dollars, millions when he was in his 20s and 30s, millions.
But Michael was also away from that life for a while, growing up, and from my understanding, was going to college.
Yeah, he was
until they just would have his dad.
His father's famous. Sonny Francis famous. He was famous. When Sonny got, that was a setup. He never robbed banks. Sonny, that was a frame job. When he got sentenced to 50 years, Michael quit college to help his father prove that it was a setup. That's why he got involved with the Italian American League with Joe Colombo. Michael, and he told me this, Michael, he only got involved with that organization because he thought they were going to help his father, but they never did. They never helped his father. He was actually at the Unity rally. He was actually coming up the stage when Joe Colombo got shot. That's right after he got straightened out.
But we were supposed to be there too, and then they canceled it.
No, because that's right. And I told Mike, listen, the day that happened, I thought we were going, and I came up stairs, and I told my father said, no, we're not going. What are you talking about? We've been protesting in front of the Reunite building for a month. Me, you, Tony, remember the board? FBI could stop. Oh, they were throwing eggs at us and water balloons. And remember the FBI's doing it to the Italians, what Hitler did to the Jews. We had to sign something. And my father told me we're not going. And I said, what are you talking about? We're not going. He goes, we're not going. And I said, all right. And then Joe, because I think Gambino sent word out not to go because he knew.
Well, because we were waiting for the bus.
Right.
I was at the bus stop early in the morning, and then they came and said no.
And I was supposed to meet us at the bus stop with my father.
In other words, everybody knew. A lot of the bosses knew that was going to happen to Columbus.
That was his crew. So Michael, he was always an earner, and and he still is. But he's
a business guy. He was a good business guy.
He's born again. I mean, he does. He goes out and tells his testimony and all that. And he sells wine.
So let's transition now. I want to talk about faith. I mean, it seems like obviously, Robert, for you, where you're at now in your life, Jesus is at the center. Anthony, it sounds like you came to faith in Christ. Michael also talks about his faith. I mean, what's interesting is you talked about how you went to your niece's christening, and then, you know, what happened to the brother-in-law after that, right? So there's always been this strange faith component, but yet nobody's actually really following the teachings of Jesus. But now you are, you know. So what's the difference between then and now, and where are you at now?
You went a different route than me. Let me. When I got clean in '88, right? I got clean in '88, and you came. I went into a 12-step program. In a 12-step program, it's about a higher power, but it's the God of your understanding. That's what's written in the literature.
Right.
So now, when I got clean and I started to develop a conscience, I started working steps. So when I started hitting the bottom, I started working steps. The steps led me to Graymore, which was a monastery in upstate New York that was run by priests that were in recovery, like crackhead priests and alcoholic priests that were clean, and they had a retreat for addicts. And at that retreat, that's when I got with Jesus. I met with a priest about guilt, and we talked about guilt, and he prayed over me, and we did a whole bunch of stuff. And in the second step, at that time, I was on the second step. It says, I came to believe in the power greater than myself, could restore me to sanity. And at that retreat, I felt that Jesus could restore me to sanity. But I wasn't ready, but I was still in the life. And then I went to jail. And then when I came out, I cooperated. But that was the beginning of my faith journey. The 12 steps were the beginning of me, because I needed a higher power. And to me, there's only one higher power. What am I going to pick? The door, the football?
A lot of people in those programs.
Unfortunately, they do. Unfortunately, they do. And unfortunately, if you mention the name Jesus, they get upset.
Yes.
Because they say, this is not a religious program. And I tell them, Jesus is not a religion.
That's right.
I tell them, so I know you talk
about faith.
Yeah. And when I share, and I say Christ is my higher power. And if I offend anybody, call your sponsor.
Yeah, it's one thing. You know, I understand what you're saying, but because I know you, even though you had that, you were still resisting it and living the way you wanted to.
I still struggle with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna get you saved.
No, you know I struggle. You know what my issue is. You know.
Yes, I do.
It happened to me today at the airport. I tell you what happened.
Don't say that. But God is working in you to get some stuff out of you. And the best way he can do that is put you into temptations, because the more that you resist it, the less you get tempted from it.
Right.
That's all I'm going to say with that story. So with me, it was just different. With me, this is, first of all, it was my daughter's cry on the phone. I mean, it just, because there was so much when I was in Rikers Island in 97. I walked out of my daughter's life when she was a baby, you know? So I just had to keep getting high, because I couldn't deal with the guilt and the shame and all that. And then I was getting a lot, even if I went to go see Nicky, he made sure that he would say something to me to know that I'm never going to be there anymore. He would do, like one time, I'll just tell you, he might be watching this, but he knows it's true. I went to kiss him hello, like we normally do. And he moved his face. He said, I don't know where your lips been. So there's certain things that happened to let me know that I wasn't going to be fully accepted anymore. And I think it was because of the shame and guilt that I brought. Because he brought me around everywhere.
I know, I was there. I know all about it.
So now I'm in Rikers Island, and I get that call from my daughter, and it just breaks my heart. But the thing that was interesting for me is I felt completely hopeless. Nobody wanted to help me. I didn't get any, not even my own family, in a sense, thought I was better off in jail. And I understand the concept, because I'm sure my mom, my sister, my brothers were worried, when they're going to get that phone call, come to the morgue and identify your brother. So I understand, at least they knew I was still alive and they knew where I would be. So I understand that. With Nicky and them, I understood the embarrassment I brought and all that. I did understand it. But at that point in time, I felt, not saying it was true, but what I felt was, nobody loved me. Nobody cared about me anymore. Here I am by myself in prison, can't get any help from anybody, can't get any money for commissary, can't get any money for an attorney, can't get anything. And that one person one time said, why don't you go read the Bible? And I was asking for money for commissary, and I figured, okay, they just don't want to give me any money, go read your Bible, they'll brush off. And I remembered that. So when my daughter cried, I ran back to my cell and I cried out to Jesus. And I started reading that Bible. But when I was reading how much God loved me, when I felt everybody else didn't, man, you want to know more about this God that loved me in spite of everything that I was doing with and everything that I've done already. So it just drove me for more hunger and a thirst. And I just started following the Bible. That's all I started doing. And still today, I do the same thing. And I have struggles too. Not everybody, I do have struggles. But I learned that when I resist those temptations in a numerous period of time, the temptations get less. And then Satan's got to find another way to tempt me. And that happens too. Yeah. But I just stand on God's promises for my life. Yeah. And that's what I do in my ministry.
Amen. To close, tell us about, within the course of this conversation, tell about what you're doing currently in the ministry. And then I want Anthony, you to do the same thing. Tell what you're doing with your organization, and we'll wrap.
So now, once I got out of prison, so this way for everybody to know that it's not just recently that I'm doing a lot of stuff. When I first got out of prison, I did nursing home ministry for 13 years. And I didn't go once a month. I went twice every week into a nursing home. Because when my mom passed away, it broke my heart because I put my mom through a lot.
Yeah.
And I just felt I could give that love to other people, other seniors in place of my mom. And I did nursing home ministry. And then we developed a Bible study in my house for people who were breaking away from churches, who were friends of mine. And I wanted to bring them together to see how we could help the community and stuff like that and keep it into a God-centered relationship with each other. And then from there, people said, why don't you go and start sharing your story, why you're in a nursing home and not out there sharing your story, you can bring hope to other people. So that's what I started doing. I started sharing my testimony, and that's what I do. And then certain people in my board and people who are here today said, you need to start going on YouTube and the social media and all that. And I didn't want to do any of that because I didn't want to draw attention to me. My whole life was about drawing attention to. One thing God said to me early in my life and my relationship with him, he said, make sure you're not using me to draw attention to you, but that you're allowing me to use you to draw attention to me.
Yeah.
And that just stood in my head. So that's kind of, I didn't want to do social media and all that. But then people started telling me, you have to talk about how big, because there's a lot of people that are stuck in your situation, whether it's the drug, gangs, whatever it is, organized crime, whatever it is, that need to know that there's a better way of life. And that's what I started doing. And then I didn't want to do it, but then somebody gave me a scripture. I think it's in 1 Corinthians, I think it's 9:22. Where it shows Paul saying, I learned how to be, he was all things to all people so that he could bring them and lead them to Christ. So when he was with the Jews, he followed the law like a Jew, even though he wasn't under the law, but he did all these things so this way he could bring glory to God and introduce them to Jesus. And that's what I do. I don't see me as an Apostle Paul. I see me more like an Andrew, introducing people to Jesus, and then it's their relationship that they have with him.
Yeah, for me, I mean, my goal is sort of, I just go about it different than you. So when I became a counselor, I tried to show people that they could change, and it's not about the God of your understanding and all that nonsense. And I tried to get people to listen, if I could change, you could change. If I could do this, you could do this. And that was my goal, and it still is. And through I got into, well, first of all, I got to be honest, I started doing it, there was a little ego involved. I'm but when I first got the offer, my thoughts were, my story could help somebody and I could help myself, right, of course, and it's a win-win. And through me helping somebody, I don't I hope that through their recovery, they find Christ.
Amen.
Like I did. You know what I mean? And so I go about it different than you, but it's still the same goal. And that's brings me. And my greatest satisfaction is when someone tells me that I helped them or I changed their life, and then I thank God that I was able to do that. And when I speak, when I go and talk, my prayer is that, let me say what I have to say tonight, not what I want to say. So my goal is the same as you. I just go about it different. And my podcast now, Reformed Gangsters, I do both. I talk about my past and I talk about recovery. I talk about my faith because that's where I'm at. And I feel like the more my podcast grows and I grow in this doing these things, the more people I can reach. So I want to put myself out there, and that's why I tell you all the time, you got to go on social media. You got to do interviews because that's how I get the message out.
Yeah, the thing I try to be careful about is I know back in the old days, it was all about me. Look at me. Everything I did was centered around me. But if I treated somebody good, it was, wow, Robert's a good guy. It was always Robert. So I'm very conscientious of that I don't fall into that kind of thing. But this is the key thing I would say for anybody that's watching this here, man. The change has to come from the inside out, not just the outside.
Yes. And when I got out of prison in 2004, I knew nothing about the internet. When I got out of prison, my daughter was 11 years old. I'm living in Colmac, and my daughter tells me, you got to get a username and an email. I didn't know what the hell she was talking about. I go, what's a username? What are you talking about? I just did 8 years in jail. What do I email? You got to get a username. And I looked at it and I go, yeah, all right. My username is going to be Inside Out 89.
Wow.
And that's still my username. And the reason why I picked Inside Out 89 is because I remembered that recovery and faith is an inside out job. And I got clean in 89, and that started my journey when I got clean. Because if we'd have stopped taking drugs, it was over. I mean, there would have been no Christ, there would have been no nothing. There would have been nothing. Yeah. That was my username, Inside Out 89.
Yeah, we would have been in the grave pushing daisies up.
But and today, my struggle today is not with my faith. It's like where I practice my faith. That's my struggle.
Okay.
You know that. Like I still like to go to Catholic church, and I know you.
I never say there's anything wrong with it.
And the reason why I like it is I try other churches. I go to Calvary. I like Calvary too, but I feel the most comfortable and the closest to God when I'm at a mass, because I don't know, maybe because that's where I grew up in there, and that's familiar to me.
Comfortable.
Exactly. That's where I feel closer to God, and in recovery, the 11th step is prayer meditation, and I do that when I go to the beach. I walk alone and I talk to God, but I'm more comfortable in the church that I go to. When I go,
you just get the darker sunglasses.
Yeah, and I could always go to confession and confess my sin.
Well, I mean, you could do that on a daily. You could do that on a daily basis.
Every night. This is my prayer. My prayer every night is, please God save me from myself.
Amen.
That's my biggest prayer.
That's why He brought me in your life.
Yeah, again, I'm my own worst enemy.
My name is Robert Borelli, and this is my story.